Good evening, and I'd like to say welcome everyone to the October 19th, 2016 special meeting of the Reston Association Board of Directors. The purpose of this special meeting is to provide the RA Board an opportunity to identify the budget priorities for 2017 and consider and decide on the associated annual assessment rate for 2017. We're down to item B, and that I need a motion to adopt the agenda. Do I hear a motion?
I move to adopt the agenda of the special board meeting.
Okay, do I hear a second?
Second.
Okay, is there any discussion? All those in favor, please indicate in usual manner. Unanimous. Before we get started, I would like to give any members present this evening the opportunity to provide their comments regarding the Association's 2017 operating and capital budget development process. Member comments during Reston Association board meetings are reserved for Reston Association residential property owners and renters. When called on by the board president, speakers are to state their full name and street address. Individual members representing their own interests or opinion are allotted approximately 3 minutes to speak. Individuals speaking on behalf of a homeowners group, Reston Association committee, or member-based organization are allotted approximately 5 minutes. Again, to emphasize, we are only taking comments regarding the special meeting items listed on this evening's agenda. And we do have several people, and the first is Mr. Higgins.
Good evening. My name is John Higgins. I live at 2041 Approach Lane. And in the interest of the 3-minute limit, I'm going to revert to my native dialect and speak a little bit faster than perhaps you're used to hearing from me. You have a lot on your plate for 2017. I recognize that. I've read through your package, and you're going to be talking about new positions and new activities, and I wish you the best of luck because those are tough decisions. I'm particularly interested, and the reason I came tonight, in what I consider the unusual focus on repair and replacement. Of all things that you face, this is the easiest. You developed a formula for funding it. That's look forward. A formula, you look at the next 10 years, divided by 10, and there you have it. Well, plus 10%. And there you have it. So I was somewhat perplexed that there was so much discussion of R&R. I'm somewhat perplexed that there's discussion of moving cash reserve money into R&R. Your policy calls for moving current revenue. Cash reserve is not revenue. It was a long time ago. I'm sorry, I keep saying cash reserve. You don't have a cash reserve. You should, but you don't. And by the way, there's a note in your presentation that refers to the deed of dropping some money in the bucket, the R&R bucket. That section indeed allows you to put additional money in. You're the board, you can change your policies and do as you wish. Another section of the deed instructs you to think carefully about having a reserve for contingencies, that is, operating contingencies. And I believe it says you shall have, not may have, but you don't. Think about that. That, by the way, is section V.13, B2, and I know Ken will quickly flip to that and confirm it. The other thing that kind of confused me, and I would ask you all, if you're going to consider a focus on the R&R, to understand before you act just what it is happening here. I looked at I couldn't look at your most recent reserve study because it's not online. I'd encourage you to put that online. The 2010 is there, but not anything for 2014. The 2016 budget is dropping off. You're now looking forward, 2017 to 2026. The amount that you're putting into R&R for 2017 is $380,000 more than last year. Well, using the formula, that tells me that the difference between what dropped off, 2016, which was about 2.6 million, 2.7 million, and 2026 must be $3.8 million more. That last year must be a huge spending. No, it's not. It's barely $3 million in 2026. So something has happened in between to change that 10-year average. It's the only explanation. And I could not for the life of me figure out what that might be. You should understand it before you vote to spend that money. And I think for the benefit of we members who don't have all of the data you have, I would strongly urge that you de-emphasize repair and replacement as having anything to do with an assessment increase. Okay, granted, it has a small amount to do because that reserve funding is going up a little bit. But any assessment increase you're about to levy is due to increased operating costs. Identify it as such, be frank, understand them, talk about them with the community. You'll get a lot of support, but people need to understand it. And I have to tell you, I don't. And heavens knows I've tried. I just can't figure it out. Now, I have another 15 minutes available, but that's somewhere else. Thank you for your time, and I wish you the best of luck in these deliberations.
Thank you, John. Next, we have Mr.
Good evening. My name is James Dean. I live at 11195 Square Sail Court, Reston, Virginia. I'm here to speak to you tonight about your 2017 budget and the assessment. From what I have read and understood, I think you're looking at a budget that is incredibly out of sync with your RA members and an assessment increase that is totally out of sync with your RA members. Frankly, the membership is very concerned about what you've been doing for the last couple of years. And this budget does not reflect you hearing from us our concerns regarding the mismanagement of Tetra, Lake House, Central Services, Pony Barn, etc. And these types of assessment increases are totally out of sync with what the Reston Association itself should be doing. You need to go back to the drawing board. You need to take this budget line by line and look at what actually is appropriate for the Reston Association to be doing. And let me be clear, I'm okay with renovations to the Central Services facility if we don't have appropriate bathrooms or appropriate Addback features in that facility. That should be taken care of. But beautification projects, the whole amount of money that you're talking about spending on Central Services, that building over there, that's crazy. Given the amount of money that you've sunk into Tetra and the Lake House, we can no longer afford those types of renovations at the Central Services facility. Furthermore, the same thing with Pony Barn. I'm in favor of us doing some things with Pony Barn. I think we should do some things there. But again, what you put forward does not, you don't have that kind of money any longer because of the missteps and the misspending that you've already committed. So I would really ask you to take a brand new look at these things and see what you can come up with that'll meet the needs of your membership. I just lost my train of thought. But I would encourage you to keep in mind, Reston Association members, many of them are senior citizens. Many of them are people living on fixed incomes. I think people living on fixed incomes are going to receive what, 0.03% increase in 2017. So perhaps if you're going to increase the assessment at all, perhaps that's what you should be looking at increasing it by. If, you know, if Social Security people, if that's all they're looking at. But I thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Dean. Okay, we're down to item D. Fiscal Committee recommendations on 2017 repair, replacement, and reserve funding. In March 2013, the RA Board, in coordination with the Fiscal Committee, put in place a new repair and replacement reserve fund. We call it RRF policy. The policy states that starting in January 2014, the fund will be financed by an annual appropriation of the current year's revenues at 1/10 of the forecasted 10-year repair and replacement expenditures, based upon the latest 10-year repair and replacement capital assets forecast and prepared by staff. In addition, the policy authorizes the board by 2/3 vote to, number one, allocate surplus dollars from the operating fund to the repair and replacement reserve fund, and or designate for a given year less than the full 1/10 of the 10-year forecast repair and replacement expenditure appropriation to the repair and replacement reserve fund. The policy also requires the association to maintain a minimum annual repair and replacement reserve fund balance, which shall equal the average annual planned repair and replacement capital expenditure over the next 10-year period, plus a reserve for contingencies of a minimum of 10% of the average repair and replacement reserve fund spending over the ensuing 10 years. Unfortunately, our Fiscal Committee Chair, Sean Inslee, is on travel and is unable to join us for our discussion this evening. However, he was kind enough to send along his presentation to the board over the weekend. In that presentation, he informed the board that the Fiscal Committee, by an unanimous vote, recommends that we, the board, fund the Repair, Replacement, and Reserve Fund, or RRF, in 2017 by $2.9 million. Our treasurer, Danielle LaRosa, asked for some amendments to be made to the presentation, one of which was to slide 6 to show the impact of the $2 million carry forwards we were taking into 2017, as it highlights the appearance of a cash buildup in the fund is due to the backlog of not completing planned capital projects. Kate Buxton, I believe you and Robert Wood incorporated this change to the slides in our packets this evening. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. You also removed the last slide regarding how surplus funds could be used to fund the RRF. Is that correct?
Yes.
Did you make any other changes?
No, ma'am, not to that packet, no.
Thanks, Kate. I appreciate the time you and Robert have put into this. I believe it will help focus our discussion this evening. Board directors, now we come to our first two decision points. Number one, do we accept the funding recommendations of the Fiscal Committee to fund in 2017 the RRF at $2.9 million, or fund it at a lesser amount? And two, how should the RRF be funded in 2017? And I guess this is the point we need some discussion. Kate, is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah. Discussion, yes.
Was Mike going to go through these slides that were sent? Is anyone going to walk through, or no?
If that's your desire, I'd
Do
be
you guys
happy to
want
do so.
It's up to the board. I've obviously looked at them,
I
but
think it's probably a good idea. So we're all on
Okay.
the same sheet of music.
Julie, how do you feel?
I'd like to be walked through.
Okay. Jeff?
Yes, ma'am, I'd like to be walked through as well.
Ray?
I would like to walk through it,
Okay,
yes.
so I think that's unanimous, Kate? Yeah. Okay.
Danielle, either you or I could do it. It's entirely up to you.
You can.
Okay.
Okay.
Let me get them pulled up on the screen.
And I'm sorry, Eve. Yes, forgive me. Okay.
It should be up there. Oh, you know what? It's probably in the, go back.
So the materials are in the
In
board
Dropbox?
packet. They should be, or in your Dropbox,
Okay.
and they are right behind the item page itself.
Oh, okay.
As opposed to a separate presentation. We wanted to make sure that all of the materials that the board is looking at tonight are posted on the association's website, and they are in order at the point that they're being heard. So this is item D on fiscal committee recommendations. It should be behind page 4, maybe 4, 5, 6. You should be able to see it there in
Page
the
10 of
presentation.
32.
Page
10. Okay, got it.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, so turning off notification that my daughter has safely gotten home from soccer, so
Good.
I apologize, so let me turn that phone down.
Yeah.
Okay, so the very first slide, and as you introduced, Ellen, is that in accordance with the board policy, the Resolution 3 on Repair and Replacement Reserve Fund is the fiscal committee with staff is to look at our reserve fund over a period of 10 years. They are to do this annually to provide the board of directors with a recommendation on how much that reserve fund should be funded in that coming year. So what is the RRF? It's a designated fund with monies to be used for repair and replacement of capital assets, including lake dredging. So for the viewing audience, that is probably most, just to define what it is. These dollars cannot be used for operating expenses or the purchase of new capital assets. And the balance in the RRF consists of annual appropriations from the current assessments, minimum annual fund balance that is supposed to be maintained, and amounts for contingencies. So that is what the RRF is. That's spelled out a little, just that's a quick short format there that's on the slide, but it's delineated further in the resolution itself.
Any questions on that, directors? We got it? Okay.
Next is how the RRF can be funded. One is through interest earnings. The resolution itself is a little bit more specific on the very first couple of years that it was put into place. Then in 2012 and 2013, the reserve fund would be funded with interest income and surplus cash at the time. It can also be funded from an appropriation of the current year's revenues at 1/10 of the forecasted 10-year repair and replacement expenditures based on at least 10-year repair and replacement of current capital asset forecast prepared by staff. It can be done by borrowing. It can be done by using surplus dollars from the operating fund, anything that's left over from prior years in our operating fund. And or the board can make a choice not to fund up to the recommended amount.
I have a question. Some of this would be based on, in fact, say, the schedule of lake dredging and whatever.
Correct.
Right? Yeah. Okay.
And then I have a comment. Ken Chadwick and I respectfully have a disagreement. If you read my interpretation of investment earnings, one, I don't think investment earnings should be in this because we've never reduced the amount that we put into the reserve fund because of investment earnings. Just hasn't happened.
Mm-hmm.
Investment earnings is showing as an operating income, 2 or 3, whatever point I'm on. Investment earnings is market. This is market increase and decrease. We're not going to sell our assets to realize cash on these investment earnings so that we can reduce the amount that we put into the reserve fund. And then when I read the policy, it says in 2012, 2013, the fund will be funded by investment earnings. Starting in 2014, going forward, it will be this annual appropriation. So, and now using Sean's statement at the end of the day, investment earnings are usually pretty small. They're about 100,000. But I think we're just clouding the water by throwing this in here. That's all.
Any other questions, comments?
I agree with what she just said.
There may be some discussion on a resolution amendment in the future, if that's the case, if we want to clean up the language that's there. I was privy to the conversation that was taking place between you and council earlier today, and that's something that we should probably take up at another time. But interpretations can vary on that.
I just had a clarification question on that. With the investment earnings piece, are these funding sources mandatory for the reserve fund, or are these the possible sources of revenue for the reserve fund? Do the interest things automatically go into the reserve fund, or is it by choice of the board?
It's by choice of the board, and they're possible funding sources for the reserve fund.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Okay. Anything else? As we move forward?
Basically, in order to realize those earnings, we would have to.
You have to sell your investments.
Our
And
investments.
we're also,
So
when you throw it in
they're
here,
not
it's
really
like,
there.
right, it's like surplus cash. You're counting it in two pieces. It's in our operating, now we're having reserve, so.
And I'd like to clarify the answer on investment, since my CFO is in the background, and he's worked on a lot of this. We've had a lot of discussion about this. If you'd like to speak to it, you're more than welcome to come up and talk about what you would do with investments if we wanted to do that. You and I had a good conversation on that yesterday afternoon.
Well, firstly, I think we've really taken the interest out of the assessment. So the point going around, I think we're just wasting time right now. We've taken it out of the assessment amount. If you look at the handout, the 76,000 that was originally there in draft 1, we've simply taken out. So.
Well, this is the first we're seeing this.
Right, we were trying to be responsive. That was one of the things as you were getting into your discussion later this evening. We were trying to be responsive to what we heard from the board. So going forward, Robert and I have made a command decision to take out investment from that piece of it, and we'll deal with investment later. At another time. We do need to have some more of an in-depth conversation that is best had with the fiscal committee as to how those dollars are being handled in relation to the RRF, but not for this evening. But we have removed it from this next iteration of the budget.
That's great.
Good. Anything else? Okay, let's move forward.
All right, so when we're talking about the operating reserve funds, there are a couple of buckets in accordance with the governing documents, which is, as you can see, this ratty old book is my Bible, and I use it along with the board resolutions. So when you look at funding the RRF, the resolution is fairly specific in how it can be funded. Just as Jeff asked, there are possibilities that the board can use in order to fund that RRF. In a very simple piece, there are two buckets. You have an operating fund and you have a reserve fund. Your operations are paid out of the operating fund. Your capital expenses are paid out of the RRF fund. That can be funded in a variety of ways. The operating fund is through non-assessment revenue. That's programming fees, recreation fees, whatever the case might be, and then assessment revenue. The RRF can be funded by the assessment revenue, any surplus cash, possibly investment earnings. I'm going to leave that button up there for right now until I've heard something else. But that comes directly from the deed, section 5.15a. Any amount accumulated, and we're talking about surplus cash, in excess of the amount required for actual expenses and reserve shall, at the discretion of the board, be placed into reserve accounts. Again, we have two, the operating or the repair replacement reserve, or be expended solely for the general welfare of the members. So you have options. That's what this graphic is intended to show. Next is the repair and replacement. How does a reserve study impact it? We are required every 5 years, last time we did it was in 2014, to conduct a reserve study of the association's assets. As I said, we did that in 2014. We have a very large volume book that talks about all of our different assets and what it would cost to replace a single item over $5,000 in that booklet. And that would be replacing a tractor, replacing a fence. That reserve study that was done in 2014 does not look at whole facility replacement necessarily, unless you choose to pick and cherry pick all of the different parts and put them together. We are going to be doing our next reserve study in 2019, but it gives us a baseline in order to look at what our spending should be, what we should be replacing, and even what we should possibly be we should be savings for. So it is used as a tool to take a look at a kind of a rolling average, a 10-year repair and replacement forecast so that we can properly save. That is looked at on an annual basis by the Fiscal Committee.
Can I make a comment about that?
Sure.
I just want the board to understand, reviewed annually by the fiscal committee. Fiscal committee will get a piece of paper, and it'll have 10 years going across, and it'll have major categories going down. And you'll summarizing by year how much each year we think are able to spend. So the fiscal committee looks at it, add the numbers across, and we divide by 10. So we do look at it, and we say the math works. It is equal to 1/10 of those 10 years. But we're depending on staff and the reserve study to make sure those numbers are correct, underlying that.
I think that's pretty typical, though. I mean,
Yep.
I mean, you can't get in and validate whether or not, replacement of the Van Gogh Bridge is funded adequately. I mean, you'd never have I mean, that's how.
Yep, I just want everyone to know that that's what the fiscal committee does. We do not do in-depth analysis on the numbers. We depend on the staff, which we feel are doing a good job.
In the reserve study, correct?
Yeah, the study, which is paid for by, I mean, those are.
Yep.
Every 5 years, yeah.
So the next slide is one that was, which shows that 10-year reserve across for the next, from 2017 to 2026. It gives you a flavor on the orange bars, how much the reserve study anticipates that we're going to be spending in any given year based on the life of a particular asset. The blue bar shows the suggested amount that we should be putting away. You can see in most cases we're putting away more than we're spending. There are a couple of rare occasions over the next 10 years where we're going to be spending more than we're saving. I wanted to point out that in 2018 you see a shaded orange bar with a question mark, and that is because we've got a large amount spent there. The area where we have a question mark and what's driving that line up happens to be with lakes, ponds, streams, and dams. We're in the middle of trying to identify how best to address state requirements for upgrading the Lake Ann Dam. Wheelie Avenue happens to go across that. It's a complicated matter. We're working with the state at a variety of different agencies to determine what the best design is in order to bring that dam up to new state standards for large rainfall overflow and how to manage that. Larry is much more articulate and eloquent when we talk about dams. You will be getting more information about this in January. But right now there's a question mark on how much that's actually going to cost. We don't know if it's all going to occur in 1 year or if it's going to occur over a period of years. And instead of taking a guess and throwing in additional dollars over a period of time, we want to use our new capital planning process and come up with actual scope on that so that we've got more to tell you on there. What you're seeing with the dark line and with the dotted line. The grayed out dotted line is where our funds currently are The darker line shows where we are if you take away about $2 million. Take away about $2 million, and I really should hand this over to Danielle to explain, is that there's about $2 million worth of carry forward projects that we have not yet completed. So we had to project out, let's pretend we're not always going to get those done. What does it look like to give you a truer picture of where those dollars are? In reality, at the end of this year, we should be at about just close to 7 million when we're starting 2017, because we have dollars that we're carrying forward from this year. We'll be giving a report to the board toward December as to what exactly our carry forwards are going to be. I can guarantee that one of them this year is the Central Services Facility. Dollars have already been collected for that in 2016 to undertake that project, and I put a hold on that until the board had satisfaction that we were running our programs and projects comfortably. So I do hope we get to take that back up to do the necessary renovations that are not beautification in nature, but necessary in order for the folks who work out of that facility to work in appropriate conditions that meet the 20th century needs of staffing. But that is what this slide shows. I'd like to defer to Danielle if you've got other things that you want to point out in what you're looking at there.
Yeah, I think this is kind of critical to the whole capital analysis, this slide here. And kind of why the fiscal committee suggested to stick with the 2.9 for now, with a great big asterisk, because for coming years, that is. One of our problems that we would like to get accomplished is clearing out this backlog. This close to $2 million backlog is why I'm recommending that Kate's focus on her staffing be on the capital projects, because they're not getting these capital projects completed fast enough, and the backlog is growing. So I think the focus has to be there, and I encourage Kate to come forward and say, I need a capital projects director. So that's number one. Number two, I'd like you to look at 2018. 2018, there's the big question mark of the dam. It could go up, it could go down, we're not quite sure. If it stays at 4.2, then our reserve fund balance goes down to 3.4, which is about the 1/10 of the 10-year average plus the 10% contingency. So given that there's a lot of unknowns right now, the fiscal committee suggested let's not steer off this formula of 1/10 10-year look forward until maybe let's just really watch this and see if we can get this backlog cleared out, how much this dam is going to be, that perhaps this is not the year to be coming off the formula. Hopefully, you have this $2 million gap between the two lines going out from 2017 to 2026. Hopefully, the gap will go away and these backlog will be cleared out. But just for purposes of showing this presentation, there's a $2 million gap going.
You said going forward, you would hope that our gap would go away. Are you
Yes.
suggesting the dotted line and the solid line then would?
That the dotted line would go away and it would come down to the solid line.
Okay.
Because the projects are completed,
Because
the money's
projects are
spent,
completed.
and, yeah.
But this is something that the board really needs to keep a close eye on, this balance and this backlog. Is it getting cleared out quickly in the next year or two?
I have a question.
Sure.
Just make sure I understand this correctly. 6.7 million, that's what we currently have.
That's what at the end of 2017 is projected to be.
So we are talking about adding 2.9 to that number.
That's already incorporated in it. So it would be 6.7 minus 2.9. If we don't fund it. If we don't fund the 2.9, we would be at 3.8.
What do we have in there right now?
I do not have that number in front of me. At the end of 2015, I know this doesn't really help much. At the end of 2015, it was 5.6 million.
The end of 2016, what was it?
Robert's going to give us the number.
Yeah.
It's coming.
We've roughly got about 6.3 million in it now, with about 2 million being carry forwards.
6.3 million in account.
Mhm.
As of what date?
Basically, this month I haven't yet completed the financials, but that was the balance as of the end of August financials.
So August, 6.3 million. I'm having a hard time figuring out where that 2.9 ties into this.
Okay, so the 2.9 gets added, and then I don't have it.
2.9 is
So it's
to
got the
be
2.9
added to the 6.3?
to get to your 6.7, because you got to end up with 2.9 added. There's got to be a projected spend of 2 million, and then your top line should be your balance.
So the upline means that assuming we accept the 2.9,
That's correct, because that gap between the solid line and the dotted line is $2 million, and that is the projects that we've collected money for but not yet spent. So if we had spent all our projects, our carry forward projects, including our current year's projects, we would be down to the solid grey line. So we're projecting right now to end this year with $2 million in carry forward projects. That's because we've got current year carry forwards plus current year projects that we will not end up finishing. If we finished all our prior year carry forward projects, as well as this year's current projects, we would then hit the solid line.
So the prior carry forwards, the 2 million, was from 15 into 16, and then we're adding from 16 into 17?
No. So the total what we'll end this year going into next year will accumulate to 2 million
Okay.
of carry forwards.
Okay.
So that's this year's projects not finished, plus some of the prior carry forward projects not finished.
Okay.
So we'll
It's
end up with 2 million. Yep. So they put them together. Yep.
are those numbers related to the 2.9, and if so, in what way?
So the
6.7 million, and then there's 2 million less, of course. Is that assuming that that 2.9 is being added into that number or no?
So that's assuming the 2.9 will be added into the number.
Yeah.
Because it's added 2.9 and then you subtract the bar next to it. So the net increase would be basically 0.9. Now there's a bit of rounding in there, but that's your net increase plan for the year. The blue bars are the funding allocation for the 10-year average. And there's a bit of a misconception on the funding for the 10-year average. What happens with the 10-year average, we take the reserve study amount and we take a look at that, and then we take the current plus the next 9 years as an average. The following year is that current year plus the following 9 years average. So when you're looking at 2019, you'll take 2019 plus the next 9 years and average that out. So the average changes as you look down your list. The list we get is not only 10 years, it's about a 20-year list, Larry, is that correct?
30.
It's a 30-year list. So we basically got a long list of year. As we move years, we've got a 10-year average, and we're going down like this, 10-year, 10-year, 10-year. That's why that blue graph actually changes up.
So could I ask a simple math question?
Mhm.
Okay. Tell me where my logic is wrong. So if we're going to end this year 6, and give or take some, right? 6.3.
Oh, 6.7.
Okay.
We're at 6.3 end
He
of
just said
August.
at the end of
August.
now.
August.
End
Yeah,
of August.
right now it's
August.
6.3.
Okay, so let's just go with 6.3 because that's what I did on my paper.
Yes,
Okay.
6.3 right now. We're expected to spend a few $100,000. So I think it's not on the graph here. If I look at my notes, I think it was we got to end up at about 5.8 for this year.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, 5.8, right?
So then we're going to add 2.9.
Yeah, so it should be like 5.8 plus 2.9 minus 2. It should give you your grey line. And that's on the assumption we still have a 2 million of carry forward.
Right, so if I say, okay, we have 5.8, we're gonna add 2.9,
Okay.
so then we have 8.7.
Minus 2.
Then we're gonna, let's assume we get the carry forwards done. Now we're down to 6.7. And then we're gonna do the 2,000 for 2017, so that's another 2 million. So now we're down to 3.7,
But that's the only assumption we're gonna get the 2 million.
4.7.
4.7.
Yeah.
We're down to 4.7. After we've done the carry forwards from last year, we've done all the work for this year, and we still have 4.7 in the bank. And on the little bucket thing, it says that our minimum balance that we have to have is 3.1.
That's correct.
So we have a pretty large delta.
Well, that delta is really building up the fund for years like 2018 when you have your projected spend more than what's coming into the fund. And that's why. So if you see most of the graphs over there, the blue's higher than the orange, majority of it, because you're building up that balance. So the years that are the orange is higher, you can actually dip into what's in that bucket, if you will, and use that to spend.
But so at the end of this year, let's just say, we would have 4.7. Then we're going to add another 2.9. I mean, I think that, I think we need to be real that, are we really going to be able to do our projects from 16 and our projects from 17 and be on course? My guess is no. Let's just be realistic about it. It's probably not going to happen. So you really have this domino effect. So do we really need this carry forward of $2 million when really we're probably going to get the projects done from 16, maybe a little from 17 in 17? I mean, aren't the projects all kind of being just shifted? Because I don't see any way if we couldn't get it done in 16, we're going to be able to get 16s and 17s done in 1 year, no matter how much money we have. It's not a matter of the money. It's a matter of we just can't get it all done. And we're not a huge organization, so that's not... I think maybe we just are putting too much on the plate to get done on any given year. I understand the reserve study is a guide, but it's not the Bible. So I think that we need to be realistic on what's actually on the list to get done and then fund it appropriately. Just my 2 cents. So I think if my math is off, I need somebody to tell me where.
Julie?
The only thing I'd say to you, Sherry, is not knowing what's on the list of projects that we haven't gotten done and on the list of projects we are planning. Not all may be of the same dollar value to us. Just like if I look forward, I see that in 2018, I've got some rather large ones. Well, I don't know what's left from before or what was planned for this year. Maybe they are bigger ones than smaller ones. So
right. So should we be talking
not
about
sure
that?
that
Should we be talking about the
3.1
projects
versus
that we want to
4.7.
fund versus not want to fund based on the reserve study and based on what Larry and his team know? I mean, the list is a list, but the list can be modified based on budgetary constraints and what's necessary to get done. Like if the dam needs to be replaced, the dam needs to be replaced,
right.
Or what have you. But I don't know. It's just not computing right for me.
I don't disagree that there's others.
And then Eve, and then...
Yeah, I think we're, Sherry, you're really being very tactical on this, and that's good, because we need to be tactical in terms of getting better at completing our capital projects. But part of our responsibility as a board is also to be looking strategically too, and to not just focus on, gosh, we have a lot of money left over this year or next year. We do have a fiduciary responsibility to be looking out that much longer term. And the reserve process that's set up now kind of takes that long-term strategic view of things. And we don't want to put the association in a difficult position 5 years from now because we're focusing on the tactical when our job right now is to be strategic with these things, to be sure that we have a consistent, reliable funding mechanism to handle those big ticket items that we know are going to be coming down the line.
No, I agree with you, Jeff.
Yeah.
That being said, this gets to Danielle's point earlier, is that we need to focus more tactically to say why we need to close that gap between what we should be doing and what we're actually doing.
Absolutely.
Just look at the trend line though, Jeff, and the trend line is, look at that. It's pretty excessive. And that's on the backs of every single member of RA.
Yep.
And that's also part of our responsibility, is that piece. So
I think you and
I agree with you, totally. I think we're saying the same thing. We're just coming at it You being big picture, me being in the weeds.
Ken? No? Ray?
The numbers that Sherry went through with you, those are accurate? She made the add and the adjustment.
Yeah. Yep. That's it.
I just want to make a point. There are always going to be unknowns. Heaven knows I've had a heck of a lot of unknowns on the plus and minus side in my life in the last 5 or 10 years. One of the unknowns is on the plus side, we are going to be adding a lot of new members. And the assessments they're going to be paying will in no way, them being added to the Reston population is in no way going to strain our resources to the amount of the assessments they're going to be paying in. So we could speculate on a lot of stuff. And there's always seems to be a fear that, well, what if a dam breaks? And what if a hurricane hits and all of this? Well, we're already way over reserved and we have insurance. Let's keep in mind that we're also going to be bringing in a lot new members. And a final point is on fiduciary responsibility, which that's a real big one for me as well. I agree with Jeff on that. And our major fiduciary responsibility is to the members to get our operations under control, to get assessments down, to make it where they feel they're getting value for the dollar on their assessments. And they're not sitting here wondering if Merry Christmas, here comes another increased assessment in January. People are tired of it. The overwhelming majority of people in Reston do not believe they're getting their money's worth on these increased assessments. They ask me all the time, what did I just get for this? What is this $55 a year you're going to add, and then another 55 and another 50? I'm not getting anything for it. That's the general opinion. We could argue it all we want whether that's true or not. That is the general opinion. We have a fiduciary responsibility to look out for our members. It was discussed earlier about fixed income. Social Security, 0 increase. Federal employees, 1% average for the last 3 years increase. We talk about it like 8-9% increases in people's pay, and we're off on another subject, I realize, which is coming up, is okay. There's no big deal. We should be doing this. No, we have to start looking at it as if we're representing the members, not ourselves. I'm not saying that that is the case. I'm saying that is a widespread perception. We have to be aware of that. We have to try to do the best we can to combat that. And I'm sorry, we're over-reserved right now. This chart, the numbers Sherry gave us, we're over-reserved. And I also don't want to see a bucket where somewhere down the road, somebody on a big whoops mistake in another area decides to pass a resolution of some sort to get into these reserves for another purpose. That is really offensive to all of us. So that's just my opinion on all such things I think we all need to consider. Thank you.
Eve, were you next?
Kate.
Kate?
To Ray's point, you know, it is important to keep in mind that we do have new residents coming into the community. But to my knowledge, in theory, in 2017, possibly, the only one that's guaranteed new is across the street, the Vi. And that's about 360 units. And if you use today's assessment dollars, that's just a little over 236K that'll be coming back. There's nothing else guaranteed right now. I don't see a shovel anywhere else in the ground that's guaranteed PRC that's coming into Reston.
236 would assume they're full year.
That's a full year assessment for that. So everything else that you see going up, we have to work for, and hopefully they'll want to become Reston Association members. Hopefully we'll be able to get a proffer to help out with our infrastructure, but it's not guaranteed, so more to come on that. So just be mindful of that, and what was the year, Eva, did you look up, VI could be maybe in 17?
Right.
More likely 18, so that I can't factor those in yet.
Well, I'm very mindful of that. I think everybody is.
Okay,
But
great.
we project out 10 years on expenses and what we might need. So we could certainly project out 10 years on what we expect to be an increased membership. I don't know whether that's another 1,000 people or another 50,000 people. But it's going to happen. There will be more residents. There will be more people paying into the assessments. I don't know what year and what bucket it falls into, but certainly over this 10-year period we're looking at, the number of residents in Reston in 2026 is going to be far more than what we have now.
But the question is, how
Will they
many
be
of
RA
those
paying
are
members?
RA paying members.
So
That's the
why do we always
The huge
worry
increase is
about
not in RA members.
unknowns when it comes to costs and a dam breaking or something else happening to where we tremendously over-reserve beyond our needs without also taking a positive note? Revenue, expenses. Let's look at revenues. They are going to go up. And it comes down to, we have to get control of the assessment dollars. We have too much reserves. We do have more people coming in. We can project that.
Yeah.
And that's the direction I'm going in. Thank you.
Thank you.
Definitely respect that. The other piece I wanted to, I did want to put in front of you, as Robert indicated, one of the things that we did do for your discussion this evening is we did give you a packet of materials. This is available on the website as well, and it's available for anybody who's in the audience to pick up. It was right outside the door. There are 4 different pieces here, and something that came true to Robert and I when we were with the Fiscal Committee last Monday was the concept of understanding the assessment in 2 different pieces. You have an operating revenues and expenses. You also have a capital budget. So you technically have 2 budgets. What the board is typically used to seeing is this big sheet with everything rolled together. And you still have that. You still have that rolled together, less the investment income. We took that off on this sheet here and made some slight adjustments as they related to not having to pay the county tax on the lake house and CSF and some other things that came off of that. So we made some slight adjustments to the last one, but by and large, this stays the same. So that's a detailed sheet. But it was important for Robert and I to split apart the budget so that you're really getting a true picture of what it looks like. So you had a summary sheet on top. We're going to talk a little bit more about that, and you can put that to the side. But you have just the true operating budget here, just operating. It shows the assessments related to operating only, the non-assessment revenue that comes into it, and the expenses related. So this is truly what it costs to run the organization. And what we've got that to is $580 of assessment to run Reston Association. The other budget that you have in front of you too, the capital, this sheet here, shows a rolled up list of those projects that we want to do in 2017 related to capital maintenance of our assets. And that number is just over 1.9 million. It is less about 790,000 that you looked at in August. If you remember at the last meeting on September, I took some things out because they weren't ready. And as to Sherry's point, what can we really get done in a given year? So I amended this list, and if we're going to take anything new up, I'll be coming back to you to use the existing funds in that RRF that are behind us. It also includes a new capital request of a new telephone system at a little over $95K. But if you were to do all of this, it shows you what the assessment would be just to do our capital. 2 separate budgets, one operating, one capital. Again, the operating budget is at $580, and the capital budget plus the new telephone system is $143 worth of assessment. So that gives you a flavor of what it costs to run the organization and to maintain our assets, two separate pieces. The last sheet shows all of those pieces together, and I can put it up on the screen for those who are viewing in the audience. Bear with me a moment. Unfortunately, it's not all going to fit on the screen, but we'll look at the top half for the moment. The top half is a summation of these sheets. The very first line on net expenses is that 580 that we talked about. There's a section on board considerations that's not included on either of these sheets. In August, I presented to the board some things for your consideration to add to be done, which hopefully later this evening we'll take up, because I am looking for some yes or no answers on those. But if you were to include them all, it's about $18 additional to the assessment. And if you were to do the full 2.9 as suggested by the Fiscal Committee, a little over 2.9, that's 43. If you were to do all three of those things together, straight out of assessment and non-assessment revenue, that is an assessment of $741. A question was asked, making sure that we had the numbers ready for you to look at on the surplus cash, what we anticipate. That's the lower half of the presentation that you see there, the bar graph. This is a repeat of information that was provided to the board on August the 23rd. Robert is diligently working on, you can sit down if you want, poor guy, his back is killing him. This is the same information that was provided on the 23rd. Robert's busy closing out the month of September to do the financials for the Fiscal Committee. I asked him where he thought we were going to be. Is it going to be less? Is it going to be more? He said he anticipates a little bit more. Exactly how much he doesn't know. But we're not going to fall below that 1.1 that you see of money that we have flexibility with. The darker blue line, cash owed to others, would be cash that we owe to others when we begin, 2017, payroll, whatever the case might be. And then we want to maintain just a minimum balance in our operating fund for contingencies of some sort. So that was asked. We're still at about 1.1 right now. Really haven't moved off of the August 23rd number. The last thing that I did, nobody asked me to do this, but I felt it was important just for discussion's sake. And I did have it in the last slide. I asked Sean if it was okay to put in, and he said yes. And we took it out, and I fully understood why. And then I thought when I presented this information, I thought it was important for you to see the options that you have. When we talk about operating, I'll be frank with you, everything in the operating budget is what is required to run the organization in accordance with the mission and purposes laid out in our deed. If the board would like to do something different and stop doing something, then by all means let me know what it is you want to not do anymore. Staff has already brought, over a period of several years to the board, one particular item we'd like to stop doing. And it's a difficult one. It's a hard conversation with the community. We have too many pools. It costs too much to do that. We've put that on the table. It's not a potato people like to pick up, but that's the fact. So if asked, and you ask me where would you cut, Kate, that is where I would focus attention. We have underutilized facilities. We have brand new buildings going up all over the place in Reston and in the corridor. And you know what they all have? Pools. Inside and outside pools. So it is something to keep in mind. I haven't touched operating. I've done my best to make sure we're operating as lean as we can to meet the mission of this organization the largest community association in the Commonwealth of Virginia, the largest in Fairfax County, the largest in the Hunter Mill District. It's a pretty lean operating budget. We also have over $45 million worth of assets to manage. So when you look down at the next line and you try to decide, do you want to fund up to the 2.9? I'm going to give you my personal opinion. I agree with the Fiscal Committee. Put the money away. I don't know what that dam is going to cost to replace this, for the organization to replace. I don't know if I'm going to be able to get funding from VDOT to help, because we're going to have to do something with that road. I don't know what kind of grant money we're going to be able to get. So my recommendation is do the 2.9. I don't know what's going to happen with that, or anything else that might come down the road. But you have options before you. You can do it all through assessment, current year revenue, combination of that. That gives you the 741. You could do it. You could do it with $2 million in assessment revenue and 0.9 from your reserve, or not your reserve, your surplus cash. You could only fund the laundry list of projects that I put before you and not put the 0.9 in. Both of those options, 2 and 3, show a 695 as opposed to 741. You could do the capital list and do the roll-up amount. You could use 1.1 from assessment or current year revenue, plus 1.1 from the cash surplus. That gets you to 685. Or you could just fund the capital list. You could use 1 million off of the assessment or current year revenue, and 1 million from the operating surplus, and that gets you to 646. Those are options that I'm putting before you, because I do think that you've got to decide how you want to move forward.
Yeah.
And then Daniel.
Thanks, Kate, for that. It's interesting to see it broken into 2 pieces. So thank you for that. And I just want to say on the future members, Ray's right. There's going to be a ton of people. Unfortunately, and I'm sure most of you realize that the vast majority of them are not going to be in the covenanted property. They're going to be in the corridor, and we have to negotiate with every single one of them to get them to be members in one form or another. So it's not a guaranteed assessment income, and the other projects, the St. John's Woods and Tall Oaks, I can't even think of the Harrison Twin, that are still way out. Tall Oaks will probably be shovels in pretty quick, but that's 150 people, so 150 units. So, and we're all hoping like heck that St. John Woods gets to be a lot smaller. Mm-hmm. So I would personally have a great deal of anxiety about counting those chickens before they're laid, let alone hatched. Mm. Real estate can be volatile, and so that would be my personal anxiety. Would be I think that we do need to be cautious about that. I also think that I just want to make sure that everybody understands that the Lake Ann Dam project is not a concern that the dam's going to break. It's a mandate that be replaced. It's a state mandated thing. I doubt that there's much risk at all that it is going to break, but yes.
Yeah, we don't know.
For Tall Oaks, I certainly hope so.
Yeah.
Since I think that's the flood inundation area. But I don't think that I don't think we can skate out on that one. I think we are required to do it. So that's all.
Danielle?
I'll be very quick. Kate, I'm sorry, can you go back to this? And this is the chart that we talked about. Ditto what Jeff said, I think he put it best. And pretty much, I think we're all very much in agreement. If we have more in common than not. So Sherry made a comment, look at how high that line goes in the outer years. And Ray was talking about the outer years as well. We need to keep in mind the reserve study is going to be redone in 2019. So the closer we are in time, 2017, 2018, we're pretty confident that these numbers are going to be here.
Closed.
I don't think that the board, I can't speak about future boards, but going forward, I don't think we're going to allow 8.1
Sorry, I didn't get that.
build up.
It wasn't directed to you.
So I want us to try to focus more on the near term. And until we get through 2018 and we get the dam numbers and we know more about it, the fiscal committee didn't want to go off that schedule just because we're so close. You know, it's just a year away.
Right.
But we wrestled with this. We all agreed, and we were like, look at this. And it's the problem with the backlogs. It's a combination of things. The backlogs, the balance does look big. But if we do get some focus and we clear out a backlog and we get the dam numbers done, I think then we feel a little more comfortable going off that formula. Two more comments very quickly. We've all said this, residents aren't going to be coming in here in 2018, so it's not going to be an offset. That's why we want to stick to 2.9 just to get to 2018. And big picture, the association outflow is $18 million a year, and this is 2.9. So this is 15% of the total dollars we're talking about. I want to keep in mind and agree with what John Higgins had said earlier, is the operating expenses are really big that we need to focus on. That's it.
Julie, this is a I can't remember question. So last year when we established the assessment at 657, I know we put some amount of money towards that, in my mind, to basically buy back or give credit. What would it have been if we had not applied?
705, right?
705.
705?
But that went, just so we're clear, it didn't go to operating.
Right.
It went to capital.
Right.
But it paid down the assessment.
Exactly.
Yes.
It's that way.
So
Right.
if we're
So all I'm
looking,
saying is, if we were starting,
yes,
if we had not done that, we would have been paying 705 in 2016. So when I'm looking at this sheet, and down below all those options that you just went through, I wanted to have in my head what it could have been.
It's what it really is. I think
Well,
that,
yeah.
I mean,
it's-
it talked about.
Right, essentially, we were operating at a 705 budget.
Correct.
Assessment number. So, thank you.
Anyone else?
Kate,
Yes.
what would happen if we just did 2016's projects that didn't get done in 17 and pushed 17's to 18?
I don't know if you can do that, because there's a list of assets,
I
right?
mean, to be frank, Sherry, everything that's on the list needs to be done. I mean, it's, you're talking about, crumbling parking lots, vehicles that need to be replaced. I mean, it's.
But and I don't know what the 16 projects were, but if they are they higher priority because they needed to get done worse than the ones in 17? So we're going to get those done. I'm not sure what they were, so I don't have a list. But in my head, I'm just thinking, there's no way you can get last year's projects and this year's projects done in a year.
We created a new list, right, for what you're thinking you can do in 2017.
Does this include the carry forward list on that? green
This
sheet?
is a brand new list.
Right.
And a majority of now, staff has worked really hard in accomplishing, the tasks that were given to them, not only the ones left over from 15,
Right.
but also during their 16.
Right.
As Robert indicated, we've got about $2 million that we anticipate carry forward. Understand that a large portion of that is CSF, okay? So just be mindful of that. or the carry forward of dollars having to do with some of the Lake Ann Dam project, things like that, or the Lake Ann dock, things that dredging, things like that that are underway that we have to do. We're working very hard on nailing down the list for 16. As Danielle knows, there's a major repaving project that's going to be starting next week in her neighborhood. That's one of the very few roads Reston Association owns. And that's not a cheap, project to do. But a lot of these things, take planning. So if we were staying on track, we would have done the CSF project and been on time with it, because we had a project manager for that. So that wasn't just resting on staff time. So that, just to give you a flavor. So everything that's on this list, we will get done.
Okay. So my other just comment I want to put out there so we don't forget is there's many people in RA that also pay cluster dues. And so when you talk about, well, it would have been 705, well, it wasn't 705, it was 657.
Right.
So to say it was 705, we're going to up it another 20, it doesn't mean you can say to a member, well, you should have paid 705, so a $20 increase isn't so bad, even though now you're paying 725. It still is a large increase for any member. Cluster members, condo owners, they pay a boatload also in cluster fees. And I've heard the comment, well, not everybody lives in a cluster. Well, that's great, but a lot of people do live in clusters and have condo fees, and I don't think we should forget that this is on top of all of that. So I just want to put that out there because I think sometimes we overlook that.
People in single-family dwellings also pay perhaps a higher real estate.
They still pay, because they
for the
have
trash
to
and all that
pay to have
stuff,
their
yeah.
lawns mowed and their
Yeah.
trash taken out.
Common area, we all
Yeah.
chip in, or
Exactly,
we're
yeah.
volunteering and
Yeah.
pulling weeds ourselves.
Everybody pays. There's no
Yeah,
escaping.
but you're living in a single-family home. That's your choice. People are living in condos. That's their choice. I don't think it's tit for tat. I don't. You're getting ready to repave somebody's. The cluster have to pay for that. It's not done for us by RA. So that's a great example of how it's a little bit unfair. So I'm just.
Well,
Not unfair. It's just we have to remember that other people are paying $1,500, $1,600 a year on top of their RA dues. Just throwing it out there.
right, but what I'm saying is that no matter what kind of dwelling you live in,
Yeah.
there are certain expenses associated with the maintenance of the dwelling.
Understood.
And those are paid. They're paid either through condo dues or cluster dues. And if you live in a condo, you have equal rights to use every RA asset there is, just like people who live in single-family homes. And so that road that we're all paying for, the paving of, we should all go drive up and down frequently so that we get our fair share.
I just want to throw it out there that there's additional costs for people that live in clusters
Yeah.
and condos.
I don't think it's additional, Sherry.
I do think it's additional.
Okay.
Okay, Ray. And then Jeff.
There's been quite a lot of statements about feeling anxiety, as if Armageddon will hit us if we don't jack up the reserve fund, if we don't keep the assessments high. I personally have a lot of anxiety in looking up there and having somebody tell me that we have to have a $741 assessment. That freaks me out. It also bothers me that I'm being told, and we'll get to this subject in a minute, that in the operation of RA, that we're operating as leanly as possible to achieve our mission in accordance with what we're supposed to do as Reston within this operating budget. And I want to give you a quote from my friend Terry Maynard, who was in Reston Now, with a very good article just the other day. And one of the points he makes is there is not one single place where RA has proposed a reduction in next year's operating budget, much less elimination of a program, position, or activity. Only additions of various sizes need to be considered by the board. That's true. It's been true for a while. Anytime we need something or need somebody, it's all of a sudden conjecture. We have to have this person to do this, and we create another silo, another department. It never reduces. If somebody leaves RA, there's no such thing as attrition here. That person has to be replaced. The whole place will collapse, or the strain on other employees will just bring them down if we don't do these things. But we're reaching the point where 55 and up people represent more than 25% of the population here. A huge percentage are on fixed income. Another huge percentage are very young people just starting out who are really having a hard time making a mortgage payment or a rental payment here. $741. It was $657 is a lot for them. I'm seeing it, showing younger people houses around here, they start adding up the fees, even at $657. I said, it's too much. I'll move over the border and go to Loudon. They got newer housing and it's nicer and less expensive, or somewhere else. It's beginning to impact real estate values at that end of the market. It may not mean much to somebody living on the lake. It means a heck of a lot to somebody who has cluster fees on top, condo fees on top, and being told that we're running at maximum efficiency and need to jack this up, which means that next year they're going to hear the same thing. 2018, that line we're seeing for 10 years. Try putting the percentage increase we're talking about of assessments for the last couple of years and run that out 10 years and see where you are. It has to stop. We have to figure out a way to make it work better. And it may mean that we need to do some things that some people think are draconian, but they're really not. I see it every day. High-tech businesses, executives that run way bigger companies than we're running here. They figure out a way to have employees cross over different departments. A lot of the employees want to do that. It's a way to learn more. It's a way to become a better employee, to look forward. I want to see some of our employees go somewhere else. It means if they're growing and we can't pay them anymore and they're worth more, that's great. Look what happens to you if you work in Reston Association. You become a better employee, more intelligent, you move on, we attract more people that way. This idea that we have, and another point that Terry makes sarcastically about merit increases in here, we make like that's an automatic. We make like anytime we need a grant writer or a capital project manager, because we don't have anybody currently on staff that can fit this particular new silo that I'm going to put on my organizational chart. And of course, the silos never disappear. They just, our farm grows. The people do not see the services they're getting growing. They see their costs growing. The people, Sherry talked about it, it's virtually in all four of our quadrants. There are a lot of people with condos, a lot of people with these cluster fees, and they're not buying this. You know, they are not buying what we're trying to sell them. And we have to figure out ways to make it right. Because we're going to start losing a lot of people. We're going to selling it out of here. We're having a very difficult time attracting a lot of people who would normally live here. And it's becoming more and more obvious. The people are becoming more and more aware. That's not going to decline. It's not going to be an easier thing to deal with 6 months, a year from now than it is now. So let's just deal with it now. I don't know why we're not. And I'm sorry, I cannot, under any circumstances, stomach $741. And to make that number work by taking it out of some other fund and reserve fund or changing this and changing that when you're really still saying it's $741, no, that's not right. That is not right. It's time we started freezing some expenses, putting some things on ice, taking a better look at what we're doing in this town, and provide people the services that they deserve to be provided, and have them know it and understand it and nod their heads and say, yes, I'm proud of living in Reston. I'm happy to spend what I'm spending. You guys do a great job. We may hear that from a couple of inside people here, but the majority of the residents are not saying that. And it's our job. We're supposed to be an elite 9. This is a board. There's a demarcation between the board, the CEO, and the staff. And we're supposed to work together. We're supposed to combine in this, but it's our responsibility to work for the members and to make sure they're getting their dollars worth and that they know it and that they believe it. They don't. I don't. Sorry to say. If it's an us versus them, I'm with them. Pardon me for taking so much time.
Jeff?
You know, I think it's really interesting how people can have different perspectives on things. Because, you know, one of the things that I think is important for us as a board, again, thinking about our larger fiduciary responsibilities, is to be looking out for the interests of the association, and by extension, its members. One of the things that I've always held important when I think about that duty is to look out for the property values of our members. And, you know, Ray, I agree with you. There's always room that we should be looking to be more efficient and more effective in how services are delivered. But by and large, Reston Association does two things. It delivers services and it provides facilities. That's really what we do. What I think of is that our members are pretty sophisticated. They expect a high level of service. They expect that we're going to have good, decent facilities that are going to attract people who want to buy their properties, and it helps us maintain property values. If we allow ourselves to come into a situation where we're going to be not reinvesting in our community, people are not going to be worried about paying an extra $25 in their assessment. They're going to be more worried about losing $10,000 in their property value. And that's going to hurt the young families who are trying to build equity in their home. And that's going to hurt our seniors who are looking to sell their homes in the future. To me, from my perspective, that's where the real risk is. And don't get me wrong, I'm not real thrilled about having higher assessments either. And we do need to be more efficient and more effective. But I try to take that larger view, is that what I'm trying to preserve is the property value, and that's the real gain for our members. And it's not the $10, $20, $30 extra a year, but it's really maintaining property value or increasing property value. You know, if we want to be Burke, we can be, not to besmirch Burke, sorry about that, but if we want to be Burke, we can be Burke. I don't think most people that live in Reston want to be Burke. I think they move to Reston and choose to continue living in Reston because we have made those investments over time, and we are committed to providing good quality services. And you know, the amenities that we provide, I haven't played tennis in 35 years, but you know what? I know those tennis courts that are near my house, they help my property value. Mm-hmm. That helps sells our community. Right. So not being willing to invest in those assets and in our community, I think is a larger disservice to our members than not investing and then losing really big. That's kind of the perspective I take on it.
Well, I agree with you when we go over the line items.
Ray, excuse me. I think Danielle wanted to say something.
We've been talking for an hour and a half on the reserves. I'm wondering if we feel ready to vote on if we should fund 2.9 or not.
Mm-hmm. Yes, Julie.
To the point of what does it mean to us for any increase, I guess I always go back to what's it going to cost me per week. And I'm just sitting here playing around with some numbers, and I'm going, okay, what if it costs me $1 more a week? $1 more. Not even a cup of coffee, right? $1 more. I take my 657, I add 52, I'm at 709. What if it was $1.50 per week? Well, that works out to $78 more, or $735. So between $1.50 more per week, I'm just trying to put it relative to what's it cost in my pocket. And I agree with Jeff that
Right.
there is a value to having those amenities and preserving those amenities. I remember the discussions that, Eve and Mike were emphatic over last year's, when we did that budget exercise of how important it was to do the street cleaning and whatever, right? I'm not so sure I see that, because I'm just still dealing with the sand from the, snow.
Snow, right?
Being at the end of the cul-de-sac,
Right.
everything comes down. But, I know that's not a Reston problem. But when I do talk to people about why they live in Reston, why they're coming here, what they want, it's what they see. It's what they know is next door to them, whether it's a pool that they never use, a tennis court they never use. But it's there if I wanted to use it. And I think being able to have the pool passes that you can get online, WebTrack, I might just finally get a pool pass. Right? Because I can do it online. And so I think that, there's some things I want to pursue and understand. I remember having the discussion with Larry about what if we did close a pool? What's it cost to close a pool? Back to your point. It costs us a fair bit of money to close a pool. What do we then do with that? So it's not like there's not a trade-off on closing it, but that is a hard question to answer, and certainly something that I think we have in front of us a number of larger decisions over the next, 2 years or so. I would agree that we should stay the course on our reserves, because right now, when I look at those numbers, those first couple years, I only have 2 years before I get a new study.
I'm not sure what.
And that's going to change those projections. And I don't want to be starting behind the 8 ball when the numbers come in 2019. And I got to look at that. And I think we're doing the right things to close that gap, get out of the backlog of projects, relook, to Sherry's point, of the projects coming forward and saying, well, are those what we want to do? And next year's the biennial, right, on the budget.
Right.
So we've got some time to really pull back that onion and figure those out. And someone we may say, no, let's push that back because we really want to do that comprehensive review of that project. I don't want to just fix the bathrooms. I want, so, okay, I'm done.
Eve?
I'm going to
Yes. Okay, Ray?
To Jeff's point, I'm not talking about cutting any vital services. I'm not talking about getting into the sinew or the bone marrow here. Operational costs, personnel costs, or what percentage of the budget, Danielle? 60, 65%,
2/3?
Right?
right?
2/3.
So
You're going to tell me we can't make some improvements there and also have employees that are happy and moving forward? I just don't believe it.
Oh my gosh.
I'm not talking about shutting down a tennis court. I'm not talking about let the paths go to pot. I want to see some more lighting in some of the neighborhoods around here. They certainly need it. I mean, for many of us, it doesn't seem like a problem for us, but for a large percentage of the people who do live in Reston, it is a problem.
Right.
That's not what I'm talking about. But we're going to get to discussions, and before we vote on this assessment thing, I think we need to tie it all in with the claims that we need so much more in personnel and operations, and we're adding, 8 to 9% in those costs during a year where the people have just seen a lot of things happen to jack up costs already. we're completely tone deaf if we don't see that. And I'm saying that we can operate this place better. Anybody who tells me they can't, I'm very disappointed in, because there's brilliant CEOs out there running very good companies. Their stock is going up. They say every day, I'm always looking for a way to improve, and I know we can do things better. That's not a maybe. It's we can and we will. So I want to see some of that, and I don't disagree with you, Jeff, but it's somewhat of a false choice what you threw up there, like that's what I'm talking about doing, and that's what it's going to take to cut this budget down. No, it's not. No, it's not. And do we have the courage to look at some of these things and say some of these things, and you know that somebody's going to say, oh, that means you want somebody fired? No, we don't. We don't even see attrition in this place. You know what it's like even in the federal government. They're looking to cut stuff back. That's what I'm talking about. And the net result of that is going to have a much greater impact than shutting down a swimming pool or shutting down a tennis court. And with that in regard, necessity can be the mother of invention. If we keep just nodding our heads and agreeing with these numbers all the time and jacking up these assessments, there's going to be no incentive for anybody to internally look at ways to reduce operational cost, which is definitely needed around here.
Yes, Director.
I agree with a lot of what you're saying, and that's on the operations side. I agree. But I'm wondering if we could, if I could throw a motion out to approve the 2.9 million for the reserve fund, and I'm tripping up over the exact language that I'm supposed to be.
Should we accept the funding recommendations of the fiscal committee to fund in 2017 the triple RF at 2.9 mil or funded at a lesser amount?
Well, that's the decision.
And the second, how should the RRF be funded in 2017? So
I
there are two
actually
decisions.
recommend you do them separately.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, and I would actually not like to, I would like to save that second for until after we talked about operations.
Okay.
And the cash, because when the cash is gone, it's gone, and you're looking at a huge spike. I'm more, that's separate. I'd like to just focus on the 2.9 million.
So would she have made the motion and you have seconded just for note-taking purposes, or do you guys want to flip it?
It needs to be specific, though, because
Yeah.
there's an either-or in there.
Okay.
Right.
Should we accept that at 2.9 mil? That's one part of it, or funded at a lesser amount? Yeah, that's the second part.
We made a motion for the 2.9 funding.
I make a motion that we fund the RRF for 2.9 million for the 2017 year,
As recommended by the fiscal.
as recommended by the fiscal committee.
You want a second?
I second.
Okay. Discussion.
I think that's what we've been discussing.
Right.
I move to close discussion.
I second.
No, I make a counter motion that we discuss the other expenses.
Motion is on the floor. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sorry?
We have a motion
on the floor.
and-
Oh, okay. Well, I will discuss that motion, and it'll lead to another motion that unless we look at this in the gestalt, the bigger picture, if you may, and add all of the other stuff that's in the rest of this package into the discussion on the total budget, because we're looking at a total budget here, it makes it very difficult for me to say what we should do with these.
Closing of discussion.
That's discussion.
So you have a vote, right now you've got a motion on the floor from Jeff to close discussion that was seconded by Danielle.
All those
Do you
in
have a
favor?
It was.
Please indicate in the usual manner.
Right, so we're voting on 2.9 to the RRR.
Actually,
Yeah.
no, you're voting to close the discussion.
Discussion.
We have a motion that we're not even allowed to talk about it.
Jeff just
That's-
called the question in essence, is what he
Okay,
did,
so
right?
that's fine. So you want to
Right?
just shut down discussion.
Okay.
We've been discussing for an hour.
Since
already.
6:30.
Yeah. So now can we ask for the vote?
Yes.
Yeah.
Mhm.
You want to call for the vote? All those in favor, please indicate in the usual manner. For the
This
2.9
is just to close discussion.
To
Thank
close
you.
discussion.
Thank you.
Just on this.
Just on this topic only,
On this.
right, the
Okay.
2.9 million.
So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
No.
What?
I didn't see Sherry's
see
hand
Sherry
go
or-
up.
No.
Sherry's hand was not up.
No,
it's
so you've
only
got
5.
Right.
Jeff,
1,
me.
2, 3. Yeah, 5.
Okay.
And now you ask for nay or abstain?
An obvious nay.
is
Anybody who has
opposed-
anything to
opposed
say
is-
should have the right
okay.
to say it, even though I'm
Opposed?
done.
I oppose.
Nay.
To oppose.
Okay, two
opposed.
opposed.
Okay.
That's the total of 8.
So now you've closed, now all we've done is close discussion on that single topic.
All right.
So now Danielle,
I make a motion
No.
that,
Now, we go back to the original motion to fund at 2.9 per the
Questions
fiscal
called
committee's
for the vote.
recommendation.
As
So now we're
recommended
calling
by
for
the
the vote,
fiscal
yeah.
committee.
so now we're calling for the vote on the
Okay.
2.9 million.
Okay, all those in favor for the 2.9 as recommended by the fiscal committee?
Okay. So motion carries.
Okay.
Now,
Now call for the nays.
Nays?
Nay.
Okay.
So now we're moving on to the rest of the discussion.
But we still have a portion of that, or
No.
funded at a lesser amount, right?
No, we're done with that.
Okay.
Okay.
The second is how should the RRF be funded in 2017?
No, that's decided.
That's not
No.
no,
decided.
not
I'm
with
sorry,
that
I'm
question.
sorry.
Danielle has
Excuse
made
me.
the recommendation that
Yes.
it be put off until the discussion on the
I am
rest
not
of it.
helping you.
I would like to defer to after we've talked about, to Ray's point, operating the whole picture before we
Okay.
determine how to use cash.
Perfect. Okay.
Okay.
Very good.
Okay, that was a motion?
So without objection, move to
Without,
Without objection.
agenda E on the,
I second.
Without objection means you all concur and you move
Yeah.
on to operating, unless you do not concur to move on to having that discussion. Is there any objection?
without objection, right?
Move
Right.
on, right?
Move on.
Well, now it's so that we can do the discussion that Ray wants, which is the total.
Which I'm very much in agreement with the letter Ray.
Okay.
you're moving on to agenda item E
Correct.
without objection.
Thank you for putting that so simply.
Okay, item E, proposed 2017 budget-related assessment rates and budget hearing date. Now to our other decision points. In an effort to keep our discussions moving along, I would like to get to the list of items we have remaining, which are 1, RA benefits report, 2, use of $360K Addback, 3, board considerations for 2017 budget, and 4, assessment rate, and 5, public hearing date. Kate and her staff provided information, in our packets related to the benefits report and the use of the $360K Addback. Do any of the board members have any questions related to either of these items? If not, I would like to move on to 2017 board consideration list.
I did not understand what you were trying to show me on the slide.
The benchmarking slide?
No, the 2016, 2017 cash needs, adding back.
Yeah, the slides that kept having the white boxes changing on you.
Yeah.
Would you like me to go through that?
Yes,
Yeah,
please.
that's a good idea.
Sherry, are you okay with the benefits slide? Do we need to walk through that?
I don't think we need to necessarily walk through it, but it needs to be part of the discussion.
Okay.
Unless you want to walk through it. I understand it.
No need for it.
So, during your discussion last month, there was a conversation on this slide. And the conversation that you had on this slide was that of the 430 that was given back in order to cover the Tetra Lake House renovations, that 360 of that add back was going to be used exactly as I asked what I was going to do with it in 16, and that's not the case. So there was an assumption made that is not true, and I wanted to make sure I clarified that. Because as I said to you all in June when we met, to go over how the association is operating under the budget plan that you authorized for 2016, and how we were working on efficiencies and doing things in a different way, I told you that I was probably going to come back with a different plan for the dollars that I asked for on the staff positions. So let's go through what that plan change is that I worked out with my senior leadership team. So the first piece here was $66K for the land use assistant. One of the things that we mentioned to you in the month of June was we were having a difficult time hiring that land use assistant because with all the cranes and all of the different applications that are at the county, land use assistants are at a premium right now. So we had budgeted to hire somebody at a certain level, and it's not enough money. So we have to reset how much we would pay that individual, salary and benefits coming in. So that amount went from $66K to $98. More realistic in what the market is paying to get someone in. Just so you know, we had put 4 offers on the table, and all 4 were denied this year, which enabled me in the month of May to say, I'll give that up for right now to make up for Lake House. Now, go look at the accounts receivable position. We informed you at that time that we had a retirement, and we also had someone who left. So we had 2 open positions. That was in June. Earlier the month prior, I said I would make it up. And what I put on the table, this is for the Lake House, that Robert and I made a command decision that we would hold off. We'll keep a little bit of money aside so that we can try and get some things done. He's got a consultant helping him get things done because we're missing 2 people at the time. One of those positions been filled, but I still had some left over. So we certainly did not use the full 114 back in the finance department. That was a misstatement last month. What we did, and what's reflected in the budget that's before you, is we have $82K that we're going to use in the finance department, and then I want to use another 36 to promote somebody and create one of the new capital positions that I need. And that was the capital admin projects coordinator. So I didn't use those dollars in the same department. I split that up. We'll talk a little bit more about that new department in a minute because I did provide you all with your packet the new makeup for that. Next, it was seasonal hiring at $181K. I told you we were having a difficult time in the maintenance department as well as in aquatics because we had some changes there. The only thing that stayed the same is the $10,000K that we were going to use in tennis. We still need to use that. Aquatics, because of the new modified pool calendar, we were able to reduce it from 76 to 40. And then with pathways and grounds, we're converting positions there. So now that went from 95 to 69K. I'm using those dollars differently. That was not reflected last month. I wanted to correct that so you knew how I was using that 360. And of course, when you take a look at it, I'm not using the full 360. Instead, I'm using 335. So I wanted to make sure you had that information. And to Ray's point, I want to have efficient and effective operations, and I want to put people where they belong. And I have a practice in my organization that I give everybody an opportunity to see what it's like to do different things. So we do cross-train. We do work together in teams to accomplish the mission of the organization. That is something that we all take pride of in Reston Association, and something that I brought with me into the position that I'm in. The next section on the slides are the new capital department. After the meeting on the 22nd of September, Jeff Thomas whispered in my ear. He said, Kate, it's really important that you show to everybody where you're getting these people, where they're coming from. So this gives you a chart of part of my organization here. You get to see where it is. There's myself. There are some other positions there. You see Director of Parks and Recreation Resources, and you'll see 3 positions circled there. Those are existing positions in the organization. What I'm trying to show you here is I'm creating a director of capital projects because I have a problem completing projects. I don't have the appropriate staff resources in order to get it done. So I'm asking for a new position. That's on your list of considerations. You received that last month. But here's how positions are moving. I'm moving that aquatics manager up to a new slot because I discovered that I have a phenomenal skill set on staff and I want to use it. So I've raised him up to a new position of capital projects administrative manager. Then I'm taking my current capital projects manager and making him a capital project construction manager. And then I'm taking yet another position that reports to, that is in another part of our organization, a deputy director of maintenance, and making a capital project specialist. That's what gets you to, and gosh, it's not on here, so I apologize, but you all have in your packet a copy of what that new framework looks like and the position descriptions of each one. Two of the positions, let me go back for you. Oops. I can get back there. Bear with me, Julie. Two of the positions, the Director of Capital Projects and the Capital Projects Administrative Manager, are new, but I found the funds within to do one of them. I need additional funds for another to do the Director. The other two people exist, they're just shifting their place in the organization.
So in moving people, will the Parks, Recreation, Resource Directorate be able to still perform to a high degree by losing 3 people? Is that the way I read that?
Or are you going to backfill them?
I'm sorry?
Do you have to backfill them?
The only backfill, but it's coming at a lower amount, is that aquatics maintenance individual. That position has been changed because some of the duties of the capital projects administrative manager are going with him. The primary answer to your question is no. There are still 2 department directors plus land use that individual is responsible for. There's plenty to do.
Is that 36,000?
The 36,000 is for the capital projects administrative manager. We're taking that individual who was in the aquatics area, moving him up because it's a different level of responsibility. Remember that budget?
Right.
It's higher, but he's not the only one responsible. It's somebody helping get the job done.
Do we need to consider the additional dollars that you have to pay to fill that aquatics management facility supervisor?
No, that's already covered in what I presented to you. In this budget here, I've already taken care of it. The only additional person that I didn't originally plan for here is the Director of Capital Projects. That's the 138 ask that I made.
So really everything else is shifting and
Shifting, correct.
having identified some talents,
Yes,
which is exactly what you want to see.
correct.
And your estimate of what that new position that hadn't been factored into anything is $6.68 per assessment.
Correct.
Okay.
I want the board to know that I was really pushing Kate to come forward with this. She did not take this lightly in terms of asking for any additional dollars. So I don't want people thinking she's just adding willy-nilly.
Right.
It really was a hard conversation. But as a board member, I've just seen this weakness and an exposure on our side. How much faster do you think, like what's the benefit? I know the benefit. What is from your standpoint?
From my standpoint, the benefit is you are going to get projects done better. You're going to get great numbers when it comes to reserve funding, how you're allocating time and resources to it. There'll be a difference. Right now, you've got people, as you can see from that chart, who are coming from all parts of the organization to get the capital done. And they don't have all of the necessary skill sets to do it. If you continue the way we're going now, I wouldn't. No matter what you decide, I've still got to run the organization, and I've got to put the right boxes in the right places in order to move the organization forward. The risk is, if you don't give the director, it will probably fall under me to do.
If you don't get the land use assistant, where's that go?
It stays with Larry and I, as we've done for the entire
Some of
year.
Larry's responsibilities would move to this director of capital.
Yes.
At 138, so.
It'll free up his time. He's got a lot on his plate. 2 deputy directors, capital, land use, that's a lot.
Capital is
But you're
moving.
moving capital out.
It is moving, right. I'm just saying now,
Right.
currently.
Yeah.
But in this new organization, you just took a third of, saying it because there's 3 under him, you're taking a third of his job away, moving it to another place.
Mhm.
So couldn't the land use assistant function then be absorbed?
Where? I'll be frank with you. It's right now it's being absorbed by Larry and I. I go to meetings 4 nights a week.
No, I hear that,
You
but
know, as does he in some occasions.
if this function is being moved, and I'm not picking on any individual, I'm just looking at the boxes and the functions, if you're moving a third of that function out of that organization to another organization, is this land use person with Larry or in this new director of
The
capital?
land use person is with Larry. I was only, what you're seeing, I apologize, Sherry. What you're seeing here is only a portion of the organization that's reflected here. I was trying to cut to the chase on the bottom line. So, you know, what you're not seeing here is, oh gosh, who's missing on the little laundry list on the deck here? But this just gives you a portion of it.
Labor.
Jeff. Jeff.
Jeff?
Yeah, I think the land use issues, you know, our community and this board certainly has a very big appetite for information on land use and our level of engagement. We've demanded of Kate and staff to really step up the level of engagement, and our community definitely has a lot of interest here. So, you know, that's one of the things we identified in our strategic plan some
Right.
time ago too, is to focus on this area. And it's probably not an area where we should be pinching pennies on. I hate to say it that way, but that's an area that the community has said is very important to us as a community, is we need to be aware of these things. Something I will throw out in that regard is, with us making additional investments here in staff, you know, are there going to be opportunities to make reductions elsewhere, perhaps with our land use attorney issue? Are there going to be opportunities for trade-offs as we increase our internal capability versus what we bring in on consulting services? Maybe we could be looking at that balance, say, as we're increasing our capacity.
Right.
I think we still need that high level of expertise that we get, because they've done a fantastic job. But as we're taking on some of that responsibility, maybe we can, you know, better leverage the high end support that we need.
And that's how that land
externally.
use, the additional dollars to bring it to the 98 was done, is we took money away from
Okay.
Odin Feldman
Yep.
to give to
Feldman,
Larry for the
yeah.
assistant. So that's where that came
Good.
from.
That makes sense. Glad you think like that. Good.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that well, first of all, I'm glad to see that the organization is shifting to focus on the things that the community is concerned about. They're concerned about land use, and it's clear that as our projects become more complex, we have to bring a deeper skill set to the table in order to get them done, in order to avoid the difficulties that we ran into at Tetra with Lake House. And I'm also really glad to see the identification of people within the current staffing that are able to fulfill those needs. I'm glad that you have a pulse on the staff and are able to make those judgments about them and do it. So, but yeah, it would be really nice if we could reduce some of the professional services costs so
Right.
that we can fund this as you have. So.
That's it? Yeah. I briefly want to talk about.
Sorry.
It's my turn. Capital projects manager, and I think you and I have had lengthy conversations regarding adding that person to the staff. And my concern was, and I expressed it to you, hopefully very succinctly, is it possible to take someone from our existing staff to provide them that type of training? And I think you said that you had spent an enormous amount of time doing some investigative work on the type of training that would be available. But the staff right now is at capacity. Did I?
Yeah, no,
that's important.
Melissa and I worked for an entire year in training up the folks that we have, and brought George Mason University in to do specialized training, and she and I came to the conclusion that and with some push by Danielle too, who was take a look at reality, and Robert, who kind of brings in a project management perspective, immediately said you need a different setup, that the resources don't exist right now here in the organization. So yes, I did my level best for an entire year to work with what I have. I've got some fantastic people, but the resources are not there. We need a different type of skill set in order to move it forward.
Yeah. I just want to make sure the community understands that you and Liz have done your due diligence on this. Yeah. Okay.
I hope I'm not jumping the gun, but I was wondering for everyone, and Ray, this is to your point, could look at the top part of this, the assessment that was brought to us. So, this is the first time that, I've seen 741. The last time we met, it was, if we approved everything, all the extras, it was $730. So there's been a $11 increase someplace. But just sitting back from my member's standpoint, I'm paying $657 right now. I do want to keep this in perspective, but I have a hard time going over 700. I'm fine using some of the surplus cash, which maybe might, use 500,000, that gets you another 25, that gets you to 725 spend. But still, to me, it seems like there has to be some place to cut. I'm just not sure that this organization needs to be running, and I have full faith in Kate. I'm a huge fan of everything that the organization's doing and how you're running, but 741 is a very big number.
Remember, it's combined there with capital.
Sure, but even if you take out the capital,
it's at 580, not including any of the considerations yet. Just to run the organization as it is without any of the new things, including the capital projects director, it's 580.
This is bigger than we met the last time. The last time we met, this 580 was, I just lost my numbers. The total was 712 assessment before you considered things. I'm sorry, let me do a quick.
She does that. How many new positions are you looking at? 3 for 2017? 3 new positions?
A moment, because I want to pull out what we had.
Yeah.
So last time around, it was 658, and that was with $1 million ad. I'm just looking at our old sheet. Do you think you can talk? Danielle is noticing an $11 difference.
So if you go to this sheet over here,
Yeah?
and you compare the draft 1 versus draft 2, the camp revenue projection now has gone down by $23,000.
So you brought down is it only revenue side or is it expenses as well?
I'll take a look. So 23,000 down, revenue on camps. Aquatics, basically 47 down.
Yep.
The tennis down by 24. This is taking latest and greatest numbers that we have with a few more months of data. We've got the interest income down by 76. And then you can see on the expense side, the expenses have gone up.
I'm sorry, could you go back to the revenue, the lake house?
Okay. So remember with the lake house, we've taken a look at the numbers that we have now in 16 and we've projected for 17. So the lake house projection has gone down by 144, but that is not impacting the budget at all. And I want to refer you to this page to explain why it's not impacting the budget. If you take a look at this page, in the blue lines, and if you add up what you have in the blue lines, you've got the lake house in the revenue side there, 244, plus funding to from Tetra Comstock Fund of 103. If you add those two together, you get to the same amount in the blue line at the bottom of here for the expenses, which is 348. So your revenue effectively cancels out your expenses because it's effectively subsidized with the funding to from the money in the bank account. Okay, so you go back to the larger page. We've just gone through the revenues. The expenses, we've called out the larger ones there, and I've got an explanation on the right there, everything above $10,000. So CSF, the expense has gone down by $17,000 because of the Fairfax County tax exemption. If you look at the camp summary, the expenses increased as a result of changing the staff from half-day operations in science and teen camp. The aquatics, decrease in anticipated aquatics expenses based on the actuals we have received in 2016 and are now anticipating 2017. The lake house, there's the decrease there as well because we've decreased the revenue projections, we've decreased the expenses projected as well. And then the land use there, that's the increase to the land use assistant position to be more marketable.
Question on the lake house, when you say it's changed, are we still dealing with projections we had thinking it was still going to be rented?
We're also dealing with the hours of operation that we have too.
The constraints.
Right, no, I knew the constraints. I was just trying to recollect when the original rental agreement that we, presumed when we did the original financials on the house, that it was going to be rented by a rent back.
Right.
Until,
For the rest
so
of the
that
year.
we actually started our programming use of the facility at least 6 months or more ahead of schedule.
Right.
Right? So the fact that the expenses and the revenues altered, was the number still based on assuming a rent back?
Let me take a crack at that. For 2016, when we put the budget together for 2016, which was basically a year ago, we had knowledge of we got to get into the Tetra property earlier than originally expected. So therefore, we put what we thought the best budget with the information we had at the time together for 2016. Now, we've pretty much gone through majority of 2016, or almost 3/4. We have better information and better data, and we've now used that better information and better data to project out 2017.
Okay.
Therefore, you can see the difference in draft 1 versus draft 2.
Yes.
So the $11 comes from a decrease of revenue of 170,000 and an increase in expenses of 60. The total 230.
If you worked it out, yep.
If you
that's most
wanted to
likely.
summarize it in that way. Okay.
Where are you? I didn't follow that one. I'm glad he did, but
Any other questions of Robert while he's standing? Thank you, Robert.
I have kind of just a basic philosophical question. You guys have probably batted this around 1,000 times already. But I know in my organization, if we don't have the expertise in it, it doesn't mean we need to have it in-house. You can hire general contractors, you can hire people for projects. You don't pay their benefits, it's not an they don't get their 3% merit increases, we're not doing this, we're not doing that. And they're done once the project's done. And you might hire them again for another project, but you don't have to have the expertise in-house. We don't have to grow this fiefdom called RA with just tons and tons of employees. I mean, our budget for salary and benefits is insane for a homeowners association. Granted, it's a big one. It's still a homeowners association. So I know in our organization, we're a small organization, but we hire out expertise. We hire those people in when we need them. So has that philosophically been discussed? I mean, do we just bring in the expertise and then let them go when we're done with them? I mean,
Are you asking me that question?
I'm asking in general, has the board had that philosophical discussion?
I'd like to have that philosophical discussion because I operate my own business that way. And I think, the best people to provide all the ancillary services, and they provide them when I need them at a cost that may be a little more per job than anybody else, but I don't hire them. I don't pay them benefits. That's how they operate, the same way I do. They're independent contractors. They're excellent. I think I have the best staff in Reston. Thank you to all of you people, and it represents each of the districts, a wide demographic range who have given me advice, told me things of their opinion, discussed some things when necessary, met with me whenever I wanted to meet with them, and without that, I could not possibly have any kind of knowledge. This stuff is put together by staff and CEO. They're paid employees that have hundreds of hours to put it all together, so we're at a competitive disadvantage in trying to understand it. So thank you to Reston and all the people who've helped me to understand it better. But you're right. That's one of many ways we could think of to drive down operational costs and probably get better results. We're not a results-oriented organization. There's no proof that any of these jobs are needed right now and can't be put off to the next budget cycle, which is the real budget cycle, by the way. The 2017 budget was supposed to be done. This is a do-over. This isn't a requested overrun, and a significant one that doesn't need to happen. If all these things that Kate says are necessary, they can wait. They waited last year, they can wait now. And like Sherry's saying, we need to have that discussion. Maybe we should go to the outside. There's a lot of great people that are looking for work out there that understand this stuff extremely well. We haven't even scratched the surface of looking in that direction. Thank you.
Kate?
I was going to ask Robert if he happened to recall in the 2017 budget originally from last year. I mean, I was very specific with the board. We built a 17 budget because we're required to by the deed. But I said I would prefer to make sure we look on an annual basis as to what we're doing, because we might want to make adjustments to it for some reason or another. What was the number, do you recall, before we were going to add any cash surplus? What would have been the 2017 budget if we hadn't made the...
I think it was
For
700,
717, 712?
something, I think it was 712
Right.
actually.
712.
Right.
Yeah, that's,
I'm sorry.
yeah, no, I would agree with that.
Yeah.
I think it was about 712,
Right.
so.
I have two observations. Yeah, Sherry, I think you bring up a great point, and that's kind of in my professional sphere. That's kind of what we kind of do. We kind of characterize it as a make or buy decision. And I think it makes a lot of sense when you have finite projects or something unique and different that you're doing that you don't have particular expertise in, and you're not going to need it for very long, I think it makes a lot of sense to approach it that way. Yeah, and for services that are going to be ongoing, things that we do, and that's just what we do as an association, it's usually cheaper to do it in-house for those things that you're going to be doing like forever. It's usually cheaper to have that stuff in-house than it is to bring in outside people, because when you bring in outside people to do these things, you're not only paying the cost that you would be paying internally, but you're also paying profit and their overhead and all that type of stuff. But I think that's a point well taken where we have those opportunities, and I would encourage Kate to be looking for those. We should, where we have a short-term need for a specific expertise, we shouldn't be looking to hire somebody that we then need to find 5 years from now. We need to find something else for them to do. We should be looking to bring them in. But for a while, I think for the vast majority of things that the association does, again, we maintain facilities, we provide services. And those are things that we're going to have a continuing need for. And for some of the specific larger projects that we do, that's exactly what we do. We contract out for a lot of the things that we see on these projects. We contract out to get that work done. So it's not like we have RA staff out there going in and doing a lot of some of these things specifically. They hire out for the expertise.
Yeah, I mean, when I see things like construction manager and things like that, I just think, isn't that like an outside buy? I mean, we're not doing construction maybe I'm wrong, maybe we do
We've got a
construction
lot
all
of
the time.
assets. I mean,
I
think about all the
understand,
buildings and things, so.
And I get the central, that, and I get Tetra and all that, but I don't know. It was just more of a question, has that discussion happened? And I guess it has.
Yes.
But I think it should be
I just
something we
wanna-
continue to look at. But
Yeah.
to that point, I would like to throw out the idea, because I like the idea, because we obviously have a problem delivering capital projects. So we've got to do something different than we're doing now. I would really like to think about the total cost of delivering those capital projects versus the size and scope of our capital project program. Because I think maybe it could be tightened up a little bit. So I think if we add up the total amount that we spend roughly $2 million a year on capital projects, we should be probably looking at a number around 10% for oversight of that function. And I think we're probably over that. Yeah. So I'm totally in favor of approaching it in a different way and even having a manager, but we need to be thinking about how we can maybe streamline that a little bit more, just given the nature of the size and scope of our program is not that huge. We need to do it different. We need to have some of the professional expertise, I'm sure, to do it, but I'm not sure we need 4 people.
Yeah.
I wonder if that would result, though, Jeff, in you would have maybe somewhat lesser capabilities for the general management of our own assets, but then on like a centralized services, you bring in outside help, on a big project. I just want to make one comment. I think as we are discussing things, that we should be mindful about the words that we choose. This is the staff sitting here.
Words matter.
Words matter, and I just kind of have it. We sometimes throw things out without maybe intending to be derogatory, but and accidentally we are derogatory, and so I would just like to throw that reminder out there.
Okay. Julie.
With our new process on projects and the estimations, putting the costs into the different phases and steps, correct me if I'm wrong, but our F fund, or our 10-year where we say we're going to put 10%, in the calculation of that replacement cost, does anyone know, did it also include the the oversight and management element of that task, which is a problem because it's something that's not been funded properly
Right.
to cover those oversight costs. So whether or not you count it out of this bucket or that bucket, it seems to me that we haven't counted for that, and perhaps that's part of the why we have a backlog is because we haven't been able to give it proper attention, no oversight. So perhaps I guess this is a question of what can you take out of our fund? How do you fund our capital projects? Can it include the cost of accomplishing it, not just the cost of replacement?
You mean from a
So
technical-
as we go forward in our taking money out to cover our projects, that 138K that we're kind of talking about this person,
Can it come out of the
No,
reserve?
we cannot do
It
that.
cannot.
Yeah,
No.
that's not
It's a
allowed.
great idea.
It is, but I think
We thought about
West
that.
Virginia would frown on that.
Right.
Yeah, it's,
Commonwealth statute.
Obviously, the RRF is there for the purposes of doing capital
Right.
repairs. To the extent that those capital repairs and expenses are related to the capital repair, the reserve fund itself is no guarantee that what they say it's going to cost is going to be what it actually costs when the job is done. So when you have the situation where you have cost overruns for whatever reason related to the actual capital repair replacement, then all those funds come out of. But adding out of RRF, but adding
but if
personnel to that is
instead
not
we didn't fund a new position,
right.
and if each project in its scoping of what it would take to accomplish that task, part of it is, when we pay for a design firm to come in, we're paying for
Right. And that
that
may be
skill
more.
set for the project person. When you're paying for the implementation, you factor in the cost of that management.
Cost overruns and things of that nature, but not necessarily your employee.
Once he's your employee, it has to be operating expense.
Well,
I
yeah,
get that,
but
but
I'm
consultant
suggesting
comes
that
out of there.
maybe,
He's a consultant,
You-
you pay him out of.
right,
Then
you
you
use a
can-
consultant.
Right.
Back to that question
Yeah.
of, no, I'm not in any way suggesting that we don't need more expertise and skill set in the area of managing. But to Sherry's point, and, maybe in 2017, we have a phrase, in my work of, crawl, walk, run. So maybe we need to crawl before we run in hiring full-time staff. I don't know, just throwing that out. I know it's not a whole lot of money, it's 138, but
Yeah.
once you
But it's
add the person,
ongoing.
then you get ongoing, it's not really 138, it's more than that. And merit increases go on and on and on, and anyways.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering if, I'm still, the 741 is just taking me aback. It's such a large number. And I'm just wondering if at a high level, we can say, Kate, we need it to be this number. And,
How do we get there?
right, how do you make
What
that
else?
happen?
I presented you options this evening.
That's, yeah, down here.
That's that was what I asked at the end of your last meeting. I wanted guidance because I heard somebody bantering a number as I was leaving the room when you went into your executive session. So I asked the question, I didn't get a full answer, and I wanted to provide you with a starting point. You still have considerations to make.
Right.
On the 23rd of August, I gave you a laundry list. I updated that list. I'm still waiting to hear from you.
Well, I think the term bantering we were trying to figure out at a high level, a side conversation, if you take 657, which our members are paying, you increase it by 5%, you're at 690. All right, now let's use half of the cash to kind of buy us some time. And that puts us at a spend level of I'm not sure where that puts us at a spend level at. 590 plus 25 is like 715. And is that a workable solution?
Yeah, that wasn't an open session, and it wasn't with everyone here. It was between you all when I was leaving, and I didn't even hear the full conversation. So I'm just, I was working on what I heard, and I thought I better hop to it and get an idea of where you're landing so I can bring something in.
So is this a good time
No
to talk about
18,
the
still 723.
board consideration list?
Yeah.
Okay. Could you put it on the screen for all of us to see?
Board considerations are only $18, which takes you down to 723 versus 741.
So I think we have 7 considerations, up or down consensus as to whether these items.
But I think to Julie's point, though,
Yeah.
I mean, she's right. It's $18
Yeah,
out of, I mean,
Yeah.
it's $18. And I'm not saying that we shouldn't look at these items and
I think we
evaluate
should.
them, but,
Yeah, I think we should.
but it's,
It's going to the 741. What Danielle has done is she's taken everything into consideration.
Right.
Okay? Remember, you start off at 580,
Right.
plus if you're going to do the full amount, then hypothetical, not using any cash reserve, and you've got 143. Okay, that puts you at an amount. Now you've got to decide, do you want to do these $18 worth of items or not?
But I think also to Ray's point is, can we be doing what we're doing now cheaper?
What do you want to cut that we can do cheaper? Just as Jeff said, this is a service organization, and we absolutely use consultants where needed. I'm going to give the CSF project as a perfect example of hiring a firm to manage the project because we don't have the talent in-house to do it. It's a one-time and then it's gone. Coming in and hiring a firm to help us put WebTrack in place. One time, it's gone. However, now you have licensing fees for a new piece.
But we also will get great benefit over the years of the WebTrack, which should in theory allow us to divert resources to other things that are currently providing
Correct.
customer service.
Getting out to
Person to
inspect
person.
more properties.
Right.
Can I make a point here?
Sure.
In the most successful corporations, large and small in this country, dissident directors, whether it's consistently or just specific to a topic at a meeting, is extremely common. And it's something you should want. You don't want a bunch of yes men bobbing their head up and down every time when staff and a CEO of the corporation who have hundreds of hours to put all this stuff together just throw something at you. Of course they know more about the background and everything that went into the papers. You're going by their papers. Directors, board of directors are supposed to go in depth and discuss this. They're supposed to talk to stockholders, shareholders, and better understand this. In many boards, there are dissident shareholders deliberately put into boards by major shareholders for a reason, because a lot of the boards are way too cozy, way too comfortable, way too under the influence of the CEO and the status quo. The testiness that I'm hearing tonight on a lot of these points, you want to talk about, don't talk about the staff and watch your words. How about watch your tone? I've heard the tone coming out all night that's extremely testy, that has an I know better than you mentality, which does nothing more than make me want to dig in my heels and say, you know something, I and the dozen plus people who I discuss this with, and by the way, I don't get paid to do that. I do have a job, I do have a family, I do have things I like to do with my life. I've put a lot of time into this. I resent somebody telling me that I'm criticizing staff, which I have not done at all tonight. I don't like the testiness and the way Danielle's being approached here. I don't like that somebody tells me that, oh, it's only $1 a week. What's the big deal? Well, that's $52 a year. Big, it's only $1 a week. Oh, it's only $18, so why do we have to go over this? Next, I'm going to hear, oh, for the cost of a cup of coffee a day, we could do this, and by the time you know, it's $1,500, $3,000. I can make this dollar a day and dollar a week analogy all we want. It's inappropriate. We're here to do a job. We're here to represent the people. Are we going to do it, or are we not going to do it? And I know that philosophically, I must be on a totally different end of the continuum of most of the people around here. Maybe that's it. I just don't get it. Thank you.
Yes.
There was one slide we didn't go over, and I'd like to just, it was on the benefits benchmarking thing that Melissa put together, which I greatly appreciate. I'd like to just talk about that real quick.
Sure.
So I know when we had, I guess we were in executive session when Melissa was with us last meeting. I don't know when that was. It seemed fairly recent. One of the things that we had talked about was the richness of the benefits package. You know, we talk about people, we talk about salaries, we talk about all these things, and I don't think you can't talk about this. The employee contribution match that this organization has, meaning the Reston Association pays the balance, from what the sheet says, I think it says, is that the association is footing 95% of the benefits for medical. I was, it's not on the sheet, but I was told that we have an up to 7% match on your 401k. I did a little benchmarking of my own, talking to some of the major PEOs in the industry, and that's nobody does that. That's out. It's very rich. It's a very rich benefits plan. And then a kind of an automatic 3% merit pool is also, as we can just see from the benchmarks, is, you know, it's kind of on the high end when, you know, we live amongst a lot of feds and then people that are on fixed incomes that are getting, 0%, increases every year. I just think the benefits package needs to be looked at. It's very rich. Again, I go back to, we're an HOA. I just think it needs to, and maybe you're already re-examining it. I know Melissa had kind of give me maybe I shouldn't say this, but a little nod that she was looking at some of these things anyway. But we can't have a budget discussion without talking about the richness of this plan when we're looking at a $9.5 million salary and benefits package. So I just want to throw that out there. It can't go unsaid.
And I appreciate you bringing that up. And as I promised, Melissa took the time to do the benchmarking.
And I appreciate that.
And made sure that you had it for your meeting. And I wanted to make sure it was publicly available for everyone to see as well.
Yeah.
We will be looking at 401k. We'll be looking at our retirement plan. But of course, as you know, in the benefits industry, I can't do anything about that right now because of the time of year. I need to bid that package out. I need to see what they say. We need to look at who's really at 7%, who's vested, who's not vested. What does that look like? What's the impact on the organization? But that is absolutely something she and I are interested in taking a look at. She probably did tell you that, and I don't want to get the statistics wrong, but what our medical increase was as compared to the rest of the industry is pretty significantly low. And I don't want to mess the numbers up. So I'm going to let Melissa tell us what that was in relation to what our employees are paying.
So the trend for this year,
Your medical trend?
medical trend for, national trend for increase is 5.9% to health insurance. Ours is 2.32. So we have continued to do pretty well on health insurance and the impact there. And that's part of the reason we have kept the percentage down on what employees pay into it. So the other piece I do want to, as far as data goes, from 2014 to 2017, which is including the 2.32 we just had, our average increase across those years is 2.48%. So we are doing really well with a homegrown wellness committee that's pretty active in really trying to keep their pulse on, blood pressure, diabetes, all those sorts of educational tools that we can use to keep those numbers down. And they're doing a really great job.
Yeah, I think that's great. So your medical trend stays low, but the contribution still between what the company's paying versus what the employee's paying is still, from all industries I'm exposed to, is still very rich. And if you keep the prices down, that's great for everybody, right? It's great for the employee, and it's great for the organization. So you're saying that your average, were you saying your average raises, like pay raises, or that was, I'm sorry, what was the 2.4?
2.32 is the increase to premiums and health insurance.
Oh, okay.
From 16 to 17.
That's great. I just think it's still out of balance between what an employer should be paying to what the employee should be paying. The contribution is just out of balance. It's great, it's low, that's thumbs up to everybody.
I think the other piece that's important to consider is it's just been 4 years that they've had any contribution coming. It was 0% contribution about 4 years ago. So it has been an adjustment, and I don't think any of us are saying that we wouldn't be willing to look at that again. We did warn employees that with all the new legislation in play, that we may not continue to see this low single digit, quite frankly, increase. So I do think there's fair warning there. But we do have a significant amount of folks that have been here 5 years or more. More than 50% of the staff has been here that long. So I think we're trying to be mindful of where you have morale potentially coming into it. I do agree it's a rich benefits program, but what we are seeing is that tends to be how a retention tool for us at this point.
Yeah. Do you know how much we as RA contributed in 401k matching?
I don't have that number off the top of my head, no.
That would be an interesting number to know.
How many employees are participating in that? What percentage of your employees full-time?
I think last I looked, it was 50 some odd, so over.
Over 50%? And it's a 7% match?
Up to 7%.
Up to 7%?
Yeah. So not everybody's going all the way up to 7%, but.
Right. But they could.
Right, right.
What was your average pay increase across the board on average across the full-time
So
employees?
I don't have that specifically, but so the merit pool last year over this year is 3%. But that is the highest increase that people will see. So it doesn't, in organizations I've worked with previously, it was an average of 3%. So that the merit pool was set at 3%, but somebody could get 5%, 7%. Obviously somebody else didn't get that. But the range right now, it tops out at 3%. So your average is going to be under 3%.
So is that pool used up every year?
No.
Okay, so where does the excess go? To the next year's pool?
It goes into cash surplus.
Cash
surplus, yeah.
So right now, that dollar amount is roughly budgeted at 3% of salaries.
Mm-hmm.
So the most someone can get is 3.
Correct.
How much bonuses are given out with that?
There is no, I think I mentioned last time, but it was an executive session, there's no formal bonus program. So what that extra additional is used for is an ad hoc bonus. If we need a market adjustment or an equity increase, that comes out of that delta pool.
So if we don't use it every year, why do we budget it?
Because I hope that everybody performs up to a 3% level.
But I mean, are we historically doing half is going into surplus? So is there a way to better budget this?
I don't think that there's that much extra that I would be completely comfortable with slashing that.
It's not like there's thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars.
It's not consistent, unfortunately, to be able to just say, okay, we can safely shave that much off.
Clarification for me, the operating expenses category 1,800. So all salaries, all benefit pieces are in that expense line?
No, they're spread, wherever the employee sits is where the expense is for benefits and salary.
They're spread out.
But there is a way,
Right.
But your salary and benefits package is running, I mean, you're budgeting for $9.5 million for 17. A lot of money.
So
Anything else?
I think the other key is on all the other benefits. We actually had rate holds on dental, vision, life, disability. Was 0% increase on all those vendors. So your only increase was on the health insurance.
So do you know what we pay, did I already ask, this medical spend? I mean, do we know what that is? What we pay in medical costs for premium?
I don't have the total. We can get it to you though. I mean, it's relatively easy.
Anything else of Melissa? Thank you, Melissa. We have a list, and we really need to give our CEO and her staff direction. I think you asked for this information back in August, if I'm correct. Yeah. There's 7 items, and number 1, roadway maintenance staff / contractor. 2, pool operations staff hours. 3, court-ordered exterior home repairs. 4, communications digital marketing. 5, member services pool pilot program. 6, board governance training. And 7, director of capital projects. So we need to decide which items should be added to the 2017 operating budget, and we need to come up with some answers tonight. So want to start one by one?
Did you have an email from Kelly Westerhouse? Did you have an email from Kelly?
Yeah, I do. Number 1, roadway maintenance staff contractor. Up or down, consensus?
Do we have any contractual obligations in that one?
I'm sorry,
Do we have any contractual obligations on that?
currently? No, this is just to add in order to continue to do what you said you were interested in doing, as well as us maintaining our existing facilities.
That's with the curbs and whatever, right?
Right.
That's included, yeah. Okay.
I just don't feel comfortable going through one line item by line item, little individual things, without the big picture. It's okay, because it's very easy to say yes to everything. So I'm asking for my fellow board members, if you guys want to go through each line item, like, how do you want to approach this?
Versus
the
looking
big
at the
picture.
lower part of this and saying, look,
Well, I don't want to go to that lower, because that's the capital funding and using cash. I want to stay up at that 741.
But that 741 includes the capital. That's the one thing you got to be really careful about.
But that's what our member would pay.
Right.
Use no cash.
I agree.
Yes,
I
so-
agree. So
That's option
That's
one.
what we need to look at and say, are we comfortable with that level of spend before we start applying cash? Because once we start applying the cash, we're making it a little murky. So as a board, my fellow board members, I'm just
I
asking.
agree with what you just said.
Response to Danielle, please.
I agree.
Okay. That's 1, 3.
Anyone else?
Anyone else,
How
or
do you
what?
want to approach?
I think that's a good approach.
Do you want to go item by item? Or
Well, I think eventually Kate needs to know what we want item by item.
Exactly.
Yes.
But I do agree that number is daunting, and we can go through this, but that's not going to get us, that's not addressing that number, because this isn't even in that number.
Well, it's in the
It's the
741.
18. Yeah, it
Right.
does.
It's in
It
the
does include it.
741.
Yes.
It is.
Okay. That's
But-
my point.
My other point was you minus 18 out, you're still at 723.
Correct.
So I think Danielle's point is, should we even be at 723 to begin with? Which goes back to, what are we spending our money on in the
And-
big picture
And what do we not want to do?
to do.
Right, exactly.
Right, just,
If you want to reduce it, what do you not want to do?
Correct, which is what,
Right.
What pools do you want to close down?
Yeah, I mean, that really is kind of what it gets down to. You know, it just always goes there. It's like,
well, only thing I will say is we're getting away next year in 2017 with not normal expenses on the pool because it's a very, very short pool season due to the schools closing, you know, and starting up early. So you get a little bit of a
Got a reprieve for a year.
reprieve, yes.
Talk about it again next year.
Costs are going to go up next year.
Okay, directors, I'm waiting for direction. I mean, Kate's waiting for direction and Robert's waiting for direction. Because without this information, they cannot come up with the proposed assessment rate for 2017.
I'll kick it off. Board considerations for inclusion. Let's just look at the big ones. Road maintenance, $174,000. Skip to the bottom, Director of Capital Projects, $138,000. There is no proof that any of this is needed or will help immediately or can't be deferred into the next budget cycle. I just say that we defer it, put it on ice, we'll think about it, see if there's a better way, analyze what we're doing. Board governance training, $20,000 is a boondoggle. If we're going to have board governance training for $20,000, let's have CEO coaching for $20,000 and bring in some people as well. I don't think that's either of them are a good idea. So let's just make that zero. And let's just not say, well, it's only 97 cents per unit let's get away from that. It's money. It shouldn't be spent. Let's just not spend it. Those three things. The other things on there, court-ordered repairs, I'm assuming that we have to spend that. We're not going to get the money from the people. And the others look like a wash anyway. So I've narrowed it down to 3 items. I'm saying we defer 2 of them, kick 1 out. That's where I am.
Okay, you're saying defer roadway.
Defer the top one and the
maintenance,
bottom.
Number 1.
Yeah.
Number 6 and number 7. Is that what you're saying?
Defer number 1 on the list and defer the Director of Capital Projects, the last one on the list, and just forget the board governance training. I actually think this board is performing much better than it has in the past. It's much more open and much more responsive to the members, but maybe that's me. I think we're making good progress there. I like a little bit of dissonance in anything you do. It clears the air. It gets the issues out there. I don't see anything wrong in it.
I
Yes,
actually
please.
really strongly disagree with the number 1 item. I think that it is, it's not, it is a look and feel issue for sure, which I think we have a responsibility to provide. It's also a safety issue. I mean, the MTAC took this up at their last meeting, and Kelly, I think, has sent a letter about it. You know, you can't say that you're going to be a multimodal community and then leave sand and debris on the roads. You know, not last year, but the year prior, as I was raising this as an issue, was on North Shore Drive, watching a bicyclist come down the hill, hit a pile of sand. As he hit the curb, ended up under a car. I mean, the car was parked, thank goodness, but you know, it's because of the sand on the roadway. Now, I get that some of that is VDOT responsibility, but you know, I got to tell you, when I'm pulling a buyer up to a $550,000 house and there is sand and grass growing in the roadway and it looks like crap, it is not a good situation. And I think that we made huge progress on this issue this year. I got tons of positive feedback on it, and I think that we are being short-sighted. I also think it's super short-sighted to just kick the can down the road and say, oh, well, we're going to put this on hold. I mean, not that item, but the capital projects director. I think that that's, you know, we have said that these are priorities. We have said that land use is a priority. We have said that getting capital projects right is a priority. You cannot not fund them. you know, I'm tired of fighting the fight on board governance. I mean, I think that we have a long way to go on being a board that effectively is you know, governing, but I could stay on the fence about that. And the, Kate, remind me what the pool pilot is. Is that the buy your pass at the pool?
Right.
Right. I think we should definitely be doing that. I mean, all of the, I think the technology things, I mean, part of why we are in this situation is because prior boards said, you know, would not bite the bullet and spend the money on technology. That's what has happened because nobody ever wants to raise assessments.
So why don't we go item by item? I mean, it's, we're supposed to conclude by 9:30. I think it's 9:25 or 9:20 now. Item 1, roadway maintenance staff / contractor.
No.
Okay, that's, okay, 1 no.
Feels like double taxation to me. We already have a
We do get reimbursed for part of it.
part of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I say no.
So why don't we do a hand thing? All those in favor of doing item 1, raise your hand, please. That's 3.
4 to 3. So
Then that's
that
to
becomes a no.
abstain.
Opposed? 2, 3.
You're abstaining?
I am abstaining.
Abstain?
Okay, so now you are split
Right.
on
Right.
this.
So it can't, it doesn't go forward.
Don't go forward.
So it can't move forward.
Okay.
So that's a no then?
Nope.
So we will stop doing roadway maintenance with the exception of the normal, Mike's dying over there.
Well,
I don't think you understand how
We
much
put
that went into it.
168 in last year, right? It's not stopped, is it? Is it
Uh,
stopped?
Well, you have to make a choice as to what you're going to do, and that's what we were presenting. Thank you, Mike. Yeah, please, help me out.
Madam Chairman, can I
Haven't
say
we just made a
something here?
vote? Aren't we
Can
done?
I hear?
It was voted on.
I
Wait,
definitely
just a moment
object
here.
to this.
Couple
We had a vote,
conversations.
we had a debate. It
Uh-huh.
didn't come out the way
Well,
our
wait a minute.
CEO liked
Wait a
it to
minute.
come out.
No, that's
Now
not
she
the
wants
case.
a do-over.
That is not-
inappropriate.
That is
It's
not,
totally inappropriate.
that is not what I said. I would like to defend myself on this. I'm just
Mike,
telling you
Matt,
what
please.
the implications of that were, just so you know.
Because Danielle didn't understand.
But because last year we voted for a big, you know, 160,165. And that's in this budget, right?
Yeah.
So does that go away or is it still there?
I want to ask legal counsel, did we have a vote and was the vote taken and is the vote done or not?
Well, there was
Technically,
no
the vote
motion.
didn't pass or fail because it was.
Just went away.
We had a vote,
Therefore, it failed.
3-1. So what does that mean?
Therefore, it
It
failed.
failed.
What does that mean?
It failed, but there was no motion.
Then it's failed.
This was a consensus.
Consensus. There was not a
Up or down.
This-
Then
I didn't-
it failed. I want to add 20,000 to this list for CEO coaching. Thank you.
Okay, Mike, please, thank you.
Okay. No, we will continue to cut the roadways, just at a very limited, what we do now is we cut it, we edge, we blow, we sweep the sand, we spray for the weeds, and you see the result, what it looks like now. If this doesn't pass, then we'll probably direct most of our resources back to our properties, you know, the pools and stuff, and we'll send out a crew. The VDOT cuts 3 times a year. Okay, we cut about probably 16 to 18 times a year. Like, if we don't get this, then we'll probably cut maybe 4 or 5 times a year, and we won't edge, and we won't spray for the weeds in the curbs. And VDOT may sweep the sand, I mean, because sometimes they do. It depends on how their budget goes, well, personal opinion, I can inject, yeah, it's gonna go from really, really nice the way it is now to back the way it was with the grass growing over the curbs, and it's gonna be a hugely noticeable difference.
I don't understand why would you take away what you're doing now? You have 160,000 from last year. Why would that go away?
For 17, you need more money to continue the program.
Yeah, we've been contracting out our properties on a limited basis right now, using the excess seasonal money of the people we couldn't hire.
Right.
That's what we're doing this year.
Sure, so last year the assessment went up $8 to.
First time we did it.
First time we did it.
We'd never done it before. We'd never contracted out the sprayers or the sweepers. And we found it's very expensive and it takes a lot more labor to do what we were trying to do. I mean, did we underestimate? Maybe. okay? But to keep it the standard that we have now, that we've got to have the labor and we've got to have the machinery.
So this is on top of what's already in the budget now?
No.
So it's what you budgeted from last year and you're adding this on top of that?
No, it's not $300,000.
Well, it's already in the budget, right, is what you're, is what you're saying?
Last year, $8 to cover this, so where does that
You're
assessment go?
Are you redirecting the money?
So on the 23rd of August, when we went over the materials with you, what we learned, having done it for the first time ever, edging, sweeping, spraying, and what it took, is that we didn't anticipate how much it would really take to get it done on all the crews, and the impact it would have on on the maintenance of our existing facilities. So we scrambled on that. You remember that I told you we had a little trouble hiring as well, putting people on these lawnmowers to go out there, people who were lying on their applications.
Right.
Yeah.
And who had drug issues, which we didn't want to have. So we needed to have professional people do that. It can either be done through a contractor or it can be done by paid staff. We can have a roadways crew. So it was, how can we best accomplish the mission? And Mike put a lot of thought to, how do we do this? If we're going to continue to do the roadways to the level of what you said you were interested in last year and maintain all of the association's facilities, what really needs to happen? We had a test pilot this year, and we got to see what it was like.
We did. We found out how labor intensive it is and the type of labor you have. You can't just take anybody and stick them out there.
So then if we're going to stop the program, do we get the $160,000 back and reduce the assessment? Like, we paid we voted to do.
Well, we'll keep the roadways going. We just won't keep them going to the standard that they went last year. And
Okay.
keep our property, and keep the mowing of our property up.
Yeah.
That's where we fell short. I mean,
2017.
2016, we
Added
increased
back
the
the
assessment by $8, roughly, 7 or 8,
For this purpose.
for this purpose.
For this
Now,
project.
so we went from here to here. Now, we wanted to go from here to here, because we said, all right, we learned, and it's not working. So we said, no, keep it here. And what I'm hearing, I'm confused.
So can you do it for $7 and increase? So
20.
can you do it for the money that was already increased last year?
Or,
Right.
right.
I see what you're saying. I see exactly what you're saying. I just don't
Like,
have the
don't
numbers
say,
in front of
oops,
me.
no,
Why do
now
I
we're going
need
to keep it and do
178 more
something
if I
else.
already have that in the budget? Or did you take it out?
Right. I saw this as
I mean,
additional
that's
funds.
part of why I was abstaining,
Because I
right?
thought it
Because
was
I did
additional.
not feel that I understood the whole situation. I've sat here and go, well, okay, if it was a pilot program when we liked the results, everybody's like, wow, it's great. Well, what if you say, let's do half of it and see how we feel about that? Is that sufficient? I mean, I know it's like, I feel like I'm arguing over pennies here, dime, or maybe we'll make them dimes. But I'm more disturbed about, am I adding another $8 when I already had the $7 in at 168?
Right, you double dipping.
Did
Well,
we put
where
it
did
in
go?
twice?
Where's it going? I thought it was
So we
staying.
added the extra money to hire additional staff, I
Right.
know that, and get additional equipment, and get additional services, the spraying and the sweeping. We couldn't hire most of the additional staff,
Right.
so
We
we had to
discussed
scramble. We put our best staff on the roadways.
Right.
We do that, we contracted out, we did the spraying, we did all the sweeping and things like that. We found out we couldn't do any of our properties, so we've kind of split some of that staff off to do parts of our properties, and we hired a contractor to sort of, you guys may not have noticed, but sort of do our properties and do them as best they could.
Right.
Now, in order to pay to do our properties full-time and get them all done up to our standards and keep the full-time professional staff to the roadways, we would need that additional money.
Additional money.
But is it 178 additional, or is it the 160 plus
Some
18?
incremental.
Yeah.
I've looked, I'm pretty, I don't want to misspeak here.
No, go
I'm
ahead.
pretty sure it's the additional 178. I mean,
Yeah.
the contractor, hiring a
Then
private
it's 300,
contractor,
so what you're saying is it really costs $300,000 to do the roadways?
and to do all of our properties. Because we won't do our properties if we just will contract out
Yeah.
our properties.
But we've always been
What's the-
doing our properties. Like,
Right, and doing the roadways, just taking
Still
two
don't-
guys and sending them out the roadways and just
It
zipping
doesn't,
through.
I mean, what you're saying doesn't make sense, okay? Because okay,
and we love you, by the way.
yes.
Yes.
No, and in the past, it would take 3 guys to do the roadways every 2 weeks, 3 people. Now it takes 12 all day to do all the roadways because it's intensive handwork. I mean, that's what it is.
Right.
That's the amount of people it takes.
Right.
300.
And so I've got to take my entire staff and put them on the roadways, and somebody's got to do all of our properties. So that's where I hire a private contractor for, $150,000 a year to do all of our properties for 9 months. We had him do it for about 5.5 months this year, and he did about 70% of them. Because we would supplement and send guys off to do other parts.
So if you didn't get this funding, what happens?
They
You
go back to
just doing the
We
project.
go back to just
Yes,
zipping the
you're-
roadways maybe
yeah.
5 times, just cutting them, not edging them or doing anything, and then we put our full-time staff on our properties.
So we're not even getting what we got in 16. We're slipping back to what we had prior to 16.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
what you got in 16, the only reason why we got 16 done is because we couldn't hire 10 people. We took that money and we paid a
So you
contractor to
took the
make
salary
up.
money and you
Yes, to
bid
make
it
up,
on-
to pay the contractor to cut our stuff.
Contractors.
But
So
remember,
could-
we gave 95 back
Yeah, oh, because
Okay.
of the.
because of
Lake
Tetra.
House, Yeah.
Lake
I'm just
House.
asking, I guess, is it in this budget?
No,
Is what we did in 16 in this budget?
no, because it got given back to Lake House.
Hold on. Yes, the answer to your question is the dollars in, and that's why we went through the show of the add back. It didn't get add back exactly the way we did it before. It went to 65 as opposed to 95, okay, for those crews, because we're reorganizing the way we're doing the work,
Right.
okay?
So I guess my question, if what we funded in 16 is in the 17 budget, then why don't we get the services, maybe a little less, that we got in 16 since we funded it already for the 16 level for 17, not the additional 174.
Do what you can do with money you had in
The
20.
What we
16
did
increase.
with
Yeah.
what we did this year in 16. Even, I
I
get
hear-
that there was some
that's
seasonal
fine.
things, but some seasonal hires we couldn't hire. So it's probably not perfectly like what we would have this year, but
Well,
it
yeah,
sounds
so
like
that's-
what I'm hearing Mike say is, no, you're not going to get the level you got at 16. It's going to be back here, and all the grass is going to grow all over everywhere, and we're not even going to get what we got in 16, even though it's in the budget.
If it's in what you got in 16, you'll get, it just depends on however you want me to redirect my resources. I mean, I can focus mostly on the roads and our properties. They're not gonna be overgrown and crazy. I mean, but they'll suffer a little bit, maybe not to the amateur eye, but they will suffer in our eye. But we could do the roadways. I think just the roadways obviously are very important. They're very visible. Everybody loves them. I mean, they're clean. They're great. Everybody notices it. People probably haven't noticed the slip in our pools and stuff because we've been doing them like about half as many times, which is, grass at a pool or something is a little less noticeable than when you drive down the street every day, by your car. Yeah, if you don't increase it, we could still keep doing the roadways. We would just have to find a way to, I couldn't pay a contractor to do our properties.
You may not,
On a
so like you
full-time.
said, you may not do them as many times as you were thinking you might. The 3 plus your 12, 15, you might do it the 3 that the state does plus the,
Yeah, you'd be noticeable. I mean, if we cut the sand, if we didn't do the sweeping, that would save $40,000. Okay, if we didn't do the spraying, that would save $26,000 or $30,000. I mean, yeah, we can skip anything, but the result is,
right.
you
And
get what
that's
you
the level
get.
of detail that your staff gets to figure out.
So, but the roadways will still get $160,000 worth of attention.
They would get our initial,
Don't
what
remove
we
the sand.
projected.
It's dangerous for the bicycles.
But they might want to remove
And-
the sand and not do something different. I mean, he said that would be one thing they could do, but there might be other things they could do.
Yeah, and for everything you give up, you have the consequence. I mean, we can do that. I mean, the spraying gets it out of the gutters and those concrete tongues on the end of it. They used to have like weeds 3 feet tall. Now they don't. It's a look. It's great. If you like it, fabulous. If you don't want us to do it, we can save $30,000 and not do it. And then you'll have 3-foot weeds. But I mean, it's not the end of the world. I mean, a lot of people have them. But
Sarcasm.
Sarcasm, yeah. But Ashburn doesn't.
Centerville's got them. I live there. The grass is 38 inches tall.
I would love to have this, but we're going from $657 to $741. These things are a big jump for 1 year.
This is
why.
why, I love this conversation. I've been trying to have this conversation with you guys since August. So this is fine. These are your choices.
Yep.
And they're not, I'm not begging for one thing or another. We just brought it to your attention because this was the cost this is what it takes. It's up to you. Just tell us where you want to go.
Yeah, we will do the work. We will spend whatever money you give us, we'll do the work, we'll do a good job.
You know, honestly,
Best we can.
I honestly think that it is better to close a pool in an underutilized pool.
We're gonna come to that.
No, I'm just saying, and do the damn roadways for everybody.
You're right.
Because
You're right.
Why don't we see how, using the funds that they had for 16, use that in 17, no addition to the assessment, and vote no to increase it another 174,000 to the tune of 350 something.
Counselor, can we go back and revisit this?
we did not have a motion on the table.
There is no motion. There has never been a motion.
There is no motion,
This
yes.
is a
It's up or down
consensus
consensus.
And, I mean, there's been a lot of things said tonight, and I agree with Kate. I think this conversation is really, really good and in-depth. But, a decision needs to be made.
Exactly.
Because of the issues that you have with
Right.
regard to the amount. So maybe this is one you say to the community, you know what? We're going to go cold turkey on this.
Mm-hmm.
And let you ultimately make the decision to see whether you want us to continue doing what we've been doing or not.
And that's kind of what I'm thinking. It was a pilot. We did it. We saw. Now, what happens if we don't?
Well, but they're already going to get what they got.
Right.
Well,
It's in the budget.
But that's up to, once again, that's up to you. Are they? Do you want them to do it piecemeal?
Right.
Irregardless of what's on this paper, it's already in this budget, what happened this past year.
Right.
So if we do nothing, they're going to do what they did last year, give or take some things.
But
So what
that's-
we're voting on is an additional $175,000 on addition. So what more are you going to do next year that you didn't do this year to make them glisten and whatever, the roads?
Well, except they shifted, as I understand it.
Right.
They shifted a lot of
They
their.
shifted some of the seasonal things. Yes, so give or
Sherry, it
take.
never ends. Imagine
I think we ought to just make a damn decision is what I think.
if every member would just give up one cup of coffee a day and send that money to RRA, what we could do. Just imagine the possibilities. Anyway,
Mike.
I'm somewhat insulted by this. We
Thank
took a
you.
vote,
So,
then we have this
Thanks,
15-minute
Mike.
discussion. Thank you, Mike. This 15-minute discussion afterwards, and then I have somebody tell me, I wasn't trying to change your mind or push you in a certain direction. Of course you were. You stopped the vote from happening and said, we're going to regret this. You denigrated the people who voted against it. And then you come and say, oh, I love the discussion. It's open-minded. That's an insult. I'm sorry. I'm done.
Okay, can we move to item 2? Pool
So did we
operations.
vote no on that one?
I'm sorry?
Is that the final vote was no?
Wait
So-
a second.
Was dismissed. Pool operations, staff hours.
I'm changing my abstain to no for the record in this consensus.
To go along with the no.
Yeah.
So it's
Thank you for the direction.
Okay, pool operations, staff hours. And I think this means, should we reduce the staff hours? Is that correct?
Going to go back to
Right.
adding about 3,500
And
to
this
it.
is what the staff wanted.
This it's also
This was crack.
It says
Crack.
press.
Crack.
Yeah, so
Yes.
yes.
Yes. Please should raise your hands.
All those-
Wait.
Oops, I apologize.
Laura?
So
Uh-oh.
this is, I'm sorry.
That's
I just want
okay.
to make sure that PrAC is well represented here. This was option 2, and this has, during our main, the bulk of the season, having Tall Oaks Pool and Newbridge Pool. They were both closed an additional day during the year, and PrAC said that they would like to have them reopen for, instead of one day, instead of the 2 days, they want them closed only one day during that main season. What you all need to know, and because there was this type of implication to the budget on revenue and expense, that's why you have the decision in front of you. Your choice.
Thank you. Okay,
I still say yes.
okay, all those in favor indicate yes.
This is to keep it open, add a day back.
Add a day
Add
back.
a day back.
Gotta vote for Tall Oaks.
5, 6, 7,
I'm fine. Is that unanimous?
total, unanimous. Okay, 3 is court-ordered exterior home repairs, and I think,
I have a question though on that one. Don't we get that money back?
We try to. It's not 100%, because obviously in some
Put
of
a
these.
lien on the house or
in-
whatever?
Right, in some of these cases, in fact, we're working on one now that has been in the process for quite a while, that went through foreclosures and then all of the banks shifting who owned the papers and stuff. We finally got down to the brass tacks, and we're going to get some money out of it from the bank, or the lender, I guess is a better way of putting it. So we always attempt to get all of our costs covered by the judgment, and then we, in our orders, have it so that the person needs to fix it by a certain date. Otherwise, the association has the right to come in and do the work and get paid back from the owner. A lot of these homes are in very, very bad shape because the owner doesn't have the wherewithal sometimes
It
to
makes the
do.
neighborhood look bad.
So sometimes you do, sometimes you don't, but we always try to get it.
But that's our intent, to get the
Right,
money. Yeah.
right. The intent is to get the
This
money
was
back.
if I remember correctly, this was an increase from what we've spent in past years. In our goal was to make our community look better and address
Correct.
some of these
Home values.
home
Home
values,
values, guys.
long-standing things that
Most
had
of what
not
we
been
do is about home
addressed.
values at the end of the
Right.
day.
Okay. All right, any more, all those in favor, please indicate by raising your hand.
In favor of keeping it in.
Keeping it in.
Put in.
So yes,
That's unanimous, okay. Number 4, communications, digital marketing, and I think,
the wash.
Cost
Yes.
of revenue, I meant just.
yeah, Mike,
Neutral.
he made a presentation to us, yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. Are we all on board with this? Do we remember what happened?
No, I
Mike
think we should,
Leone.
I think we should spend about 15 minutes debating it, though.
Kidding.
I'm kidding. Fun, have a little laughter.
All those in favor? Commu-
Isn't it net
We're at
neutral?
number
It's a
four.
So
net
we have-
zero, right?
Yeah,
but
Why am I
it's
voting?
important.
Well, it's a presumption of net zero, there's no
Right, okay.
guarantee.
Oh,
Right.
yes.
I'll just say, I mean,
I didn't hear the presentation, so I don't really.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Could we raise the hand again, please? I didn't see. Oh, okay, that's unanimous. Number 5, member services pool pilot program.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Jeff, are you with us?
I just had a
Sure.
question about this. Is this the pilot program to sell passes at the
Yes.
Right.
pools? Is that the
Right, at the
idea?
pool, yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
yes.
I think Laura gave us a presentation, that's,
I think-
all those in favor, please raise your hand.
I think just sell more.
So more, right.
Moving right along. Okay, number 6, board governance training.
No, we don't do
I mean, you know, we have been trying for a year or more to complete an ethics policy, which, you know, we are unable to do. We have been working on, I mean, I think, yes, it is what we need, but, you know, but, you know, Mike's not here to
Yeah,
defend it, and so.
and we made investment in the training, right?
We did,
Yeah,
and then,
and we have not completed
produced
that.
nothing.
No.
Did not complete it because, you know, we had to get into a contest over whether or not it's, you know, so.
Okay.
So we didn't succeed, so we should throw more money at it, is what the answer is. I
No,
vote- I
but-
vote no. I'm a very strong no on this.
But I think there's money still in the budget no, nothing? Okay.
Was there money in here last year for it?
Yep,
Yeah,
So where did it go?
you used it
we
already.
used it.
But it's in our assessment.
You used it already last year, so for the
Yeah.
2017, I did not include any
Okay, so it's
money.
not in the
for
2017.
Nothing is in 17. This is an add-on if you want to do it.
Okay. Okay, all those in favor of board governance training, please raise your hand. Just you and I. 1, 2,
No, me too.
3,
3.
3. Opposed? 2, 3. Abstain? 1.
So it kind of neutral, so it doesn't kind of go
Yes, it
forward.
doesn't go
That's
Just
so
go
it's
forward,
in
okay.
limbo.
Fails.
I would like us to utilize the lessons learned in 2016 and apply that knowledge and see how we do and complete the ethics work.
Noted.
Okay. Number 7, Director of Capital Projects. All those in favor of adding the stational person?
Can I-
Yes.
I very much wanted this, but with the, I think that we have to explore cheaper ways to do this. And I very much wanted it, but with this, without making any cuts, if there's no cuts in that net operating expense, I can't add more to our assessment.
Well, I think we can cut operating. I mean, pools are in operating, that's $780,000. I mean, where we already know, based on what Laura has told us, that we have underutilized facilities. So I think that it's, I mean, Ray talks about us being brave, let's be brave. I mean, it's like, let's not, I mean, this is the thing, I mean, I fought really hard to keep the Tall Oaks pool open because I felt like, hey, between the blighted, thing, I think we can't take the damn pool away too because it's going to look like a,
Right.
Since we are in a populist mood, I think we should. Let's go there.
All right.
Let's cut the damn pools. I mean, that is the thing. That is the big driver. And so, on the one hand, I mean, yeah,
So are you
780.
suggesting that you would like Kate to come back to us and tell us if they cut one of the pools out in your particular district, that it would save us that much money?
We've already
Close
taken
it,
a pool.
don't
I mean,
even run
yeah,
it that
I mean,
year,
look
and how
at
much
maybe
does it cost to
now
not
that
start it back up and keep it under wraps
It's about
for
this
a
Director
summer?
of Capital Projects.
We're on that.
Okay, Director of Capital Projects.
So I think that, wait a minute, Ellen.
Okay.
I really would like to finish this. It's
Okay.
like, I mean, we have something important to do. We have big projects to complete.
I agree.
We have actual work that needs to be done. And we have facilities that are underutilized. We have a couple of tennis courts that are in deep shade that I know are never used over behind, in South Reston. I can't think of the name of in Brayton, I mean, let's look at the utility of those things and really look at the value.
Well, I don't think anyone doesn't think that we should look at that, but we're dealing with 2017's budget. I don't know how we do what you're suggesting and affect 2017's budget.
Maybe you
other
don't
than to
affect
say,
it, but.
Hey, Kate, what would it cost? Or Laura, what would
Right.
it cost if we didn't open one of those pools this year?
Well, you could mothball them for a year, and then you can, if you can pull it together, you can unmothball them.
Or maybe approve this and say, Kate, find $7 cuts elsewhere.
Right.
Right. I mean, that's what I would say. It's like, it's like, you can't say we have goals, we have,
Right.
and then say, but we're not going to pay for it. So, it's like, that's ridiculous.
But if we can find a trade-off.
I agree with that, but so I think the trade-off is that's where it's going to be. And so, this is the place where we're going to have to pick up the potato and say, okay, we're dealing with it.
Right.
Eve, I'm encouraged by what you're saying, and I think in 2018, we need to be much more serious about all of this stuff, exactly what you're talking about, and go for it. Really go for it, and have an intelligent discussion on this. As for 2017, though, Director of Capital Projects, we may or may not need that person. There's no proof that we do. There's no proof of the benefits. Let's just ice it for now, and if we need it in 2018, we'll put it in 2018.
I don't know how you prove that you need something. I mean, our
Kate a question about
expertise is in the staff.
Right.
Kate, if you didn't have this director, would you still take these three people and pull them together to?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, no doubt.
And you would just end up managing them, or Larry would? Or?
Absolutely. No, Larry's got a lot on his plate. They're going to end up with me, just so you know. That's how it would happen.
And you know what?
Question?
By not providing this person, Director of Capital Projects, I think it's costing the association money. Because every year that you're not completing one of those projects, the cost of the project is going up.
Mm-hmm.
So
and
it's costing us.
As Danielle indicated, I was already going to make changes. I didn't want to make the ask. She made me. I'm going to be frank with you, okay? And I said, nobody's going to go for that.
Yep.
And she said, you've got too much on your plate now,
Exactly.
okay? It just means
No.
more.
But I think we can find,
I can tell you what the cost is.
but can you find cuts elsewhere in the organization?
I'm being frank with you. That's another $140,000.
Right.
We went over this with a fine-tooth comb. I found you another 40
Right.
with the tax rebate.
Right.
You know, I really, I mean, everything that we're doing, I've done the best I can. I'm going to look at the benefits, but that's a process. I'm not going to be able to say I'm going to cut this much. I don't know. I really don't know. And I'm not trying to be facetious. I'm not saying I haven't done my best. I can tell you my staff and I work really hard all the time to find a better way to do business. I mean, simple things that I told you about in June. Why are we mailing out decision letters from DRB or Covenants Committee decisions at whatever the cost is per letter, as opposed to emailing? It doesn't cost you anything. Believe it or not, that adds up.
Yeah, it
Does
does.
that.
Getting people to vote electronically as opposed to sending in a ballot adds up. Electronic's cheap.
Yeah.
Every time somebody clicks on it, says, I want to receive this, I don't have to put out a $2 ballot package every time.
And staff to complete it.
Or staff to complete it.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, there's efficiencies everywhere. Ray's absolutely right. You guys are right. I'm looking constantly. It's not like I'm blinding and saying, I just need to do what I need to do. It was tight. And you know, it was funny, one of my newest department directors said after the last meeting, and if you remember how many directors I had in the audience that night, I had illnesses and vacations, so there are only 2 of them here. And the one that remained said to me, I've never been in an organization, and Ken, am I saying this correctly? Because you were with me when he said it. That gives you a little bit of a hint as to who it might have been, that doesn't have any fluff. Nothing. And so it comes down to pools. I told you where I'd cut, so if you tell me to find $7, I'm going to cut something related to pools. Frankly, that's what I'm going to do.
I think that's what
Julie.
we should
Yeah,
do.
I do too. Julie, you had your hand up.
I agree.
I thought about asking the question whether or not you considered doing the director of capital projects as a one-year term consultant.
For less than 138,000?
And then I went through my thought process and went, well, it probably would cost more than that.
Right.
So I changed my mind.
And so you know, too, something else, an exercise that Melissa and I went through. I can't remember if I told Chadwick this or not, but I also went through the exercise of what happens if I bring legal in-house. She said, that's cost prohibitive. I think it was more than we even pay now just for the services there as well. I mean, I went through that exercise.
I do want to make one comment. If I were to vote on which position I would see us providing more benefit to the member, I think it's in this capital project skill set than in the land use, the land assistant. I realize that, I know that it's, you know, just shifting, like I feel like I'm doing, you know, peas underneath a cup. But and they're not quite the same amount of money. One's like, what, 98 versus 138. But, you know, it might be that you end up finding that you don't find the person that you need right away in one particular of that. But
We already went through that, so now we know what we need to do in order to get the right person in the door. We lost 4. I know what we need to do to fix that to get 1.
You may be surprised at the synergy of the 3 people that you have in-house that you want to develop up. You might be surprised at their skill set when you give them the opportunity. You know?
I've tested that this year.
Yes.
I'll be frank, I've tested it, doesn't work. I had proof of that about 2 weeks before the meeting on the 22nd of September, and I said, I am going to do what Danielle told me I needed to do and make the ask. It was clear that I needed the right resources in order to move forward.
okay, can we vote on this?
Well, I'm okay voting for this if we can find $7 elsewhere.
I told you exactly where I'm taking it from. It's coming out of aquatics.
I think that's fine.
Okay, Director of Capital Projects, all those in favor?
Of keeping it in.
Of keeping it in.
Keeping it in. 1, 2, 3, 5. It's fine. Okay, nay? 2. So Kate,
May I ask a question?
Sure.
So there's not going to be any discussion about reducing operating because we don't want to look at pools. Is that what we're saying?
I just said I'm going to reduce it by,
Okay, so,
All I
okay, so
thought
then
we were
that's,
doing
okay.
was this sheet.
So,
Now we're on
okay,
to
so,
another topic.
Now we're on to the operations.
all right, but, so then okay. That's fine.
So if you were to go back to this sheet, this top sheet, that top number where it says 580 would be 573, because you take $7 out of it. The board considerations becomes, I think, I just messed that up.
199 plus
Well,
24 cents.
18.31 minus 843. So that becomes 988 or 10.
I don't think so.
573 plus 10 plus 143. You're at 726. So 741 becomes 726. And I'm sure someone else will.
Changing your 18. What did you change your 18?
10.
I don't know how you get it.
You have to add these up.
and Kate, I don't know
What'd you get?
if,
Oh, because you took the 7, you took the 7 out of the
Yes.
580 and put it back in on the 18. Okay.
I don't know if you can even give us an answer to this tonight, you and Robert, the proposed assessment rate for now, based on the information that has been answered and submitted tonight for 2017, or can you?
oh, yeah, I mean, we could
Okay.
calculate it right
Okay.
now
Okay.
and tell you what, I mean, Danielle's in the process of doing it as well.
So I said 726. The 741 goes to 726. And then
Which
I
is
think,
$1.25 a week, Ray, in that cup of coffee analogy.
but if we stick
Depends on
to,
where you get the
So
coffee.
Rob, come on up with us.
now we take a look at, now we are comfortable in our spending. I think now's the time to talk about the surplus cash.
And I don't know if you heard about the assessment rate.
Did you get 726?
With the screens closing down, I didn't get the totals, so,
The net operating expenses was 580.
yeah, so 580 mintus the 7.
Minus 7.
So that gets 573.
Plus the 10 of the add-ins is
10,
583.
Yeah, plus 143, I got 726 before any use of surplus cash.
It's actually minus $7.60.
So yeah, I mean, I would agree with that. I just didn't get the 10 out. Right now I could.
Oh,
That's all right.
do you want my sheet?
Yeah, I'll take it.
Here's the yeses, they add up to that. That's what we're here.
Okay. Okay. All right.
Just, Danielle, what was the 5%? What was that number?
5% increase is 690. Oh, you're right. Right,
Danielle?
725. Yeah,
Danielle,
sorry, yeah.
what did you get on the total of this?
I got 891.
Yeah, me too. Yeah.
That puts it at 725, I was wrong.
What's the household number you divided to?
Robert, is your household number still 20,600? Or is it 2644?
2644.
Say that again?
2644. That's the equivalent units. So yeah, I get to 724.91, so 725 before any use of surplus cash.
We're talking about surplus.
Do you want to keep
I
that,
don't
or
know
are you okay?
if he's ready or.
Danielle, while we're waiting, could you talk to me a little bit about the surplus cash?
Yeah, we were just saying,
So-
yeah.
I think it's always good to have two sources of information. And when I was home, I took the 2015 financials and I calculated what I thought excess or surplus cash would be. And it came out to be exactly what Robert is presenting to you guys tonight, is 1.1 million. So my concern with, well, what I would like to propose with the surplus cash is not using it all in 1 year. I'd like to actually divide it in half. And the reason why, so if you were to divide it in half, that would provide about $26 relief, I think.
On 725.
Right. Robert will.
You want to calculate that for us,
20,
Robert?
it's 26, it's actually $27 roughly.
Is it a $27? Double check that. Come back up to the podiums there.
What did you say?
Sorry.
Sorry, I lost you.
Sure. I think it's important not to use all that cash in 1 year because you kind of need to bridge. We'd be looking at, if we didn't have this, we'd be looking at a 657 to 725 increase, and I think that's too much for people to take in 1 year.
Mhm.
And so that's why I was recommending dividing it up. It could be half or however you guys want to.
So if you used half of it, what would it come down to then?
Half of it,
$26, 26.64.
so 27.
27.
So if you were to take the 725 minus $27, you're at an assessment of 698.
We make it $699.99.
Stop it. As long as it's not 666.
And at $1 per week, or you get to 709 from the current assessment, just.
I guess the question I have is, do we understand where that surplus comes from? Because that's kind of what I'm interested in. And do we expect to have that again next year? And
Do you want to?
Yeah, I can talk about that. So if you think of your budget like we have on this page, purely operating, right? We've got a balanced budget over here. We've got revenue, projected revenue, and projected expenses. So if you have more revenue in a year than expenses, we end up with more cash.
Right.
If you have less spend in a year, we end up with more cash. If we do a really good job at trying to save money and we save money, you have more cash available. That's the majority of where this really comes from.
I don't think we're going to have these huge buildups in the future, and especially now that Robert is looking at it closely. I think for years what was happening was they were increasing it by the assessment 25 every single year. The costs were kind of staying low. And then there was no going back to see how do we really do. And so at the end of last year, there was like 2.3 million at the end of 2015. So we used $1 million of that.
okay, and some of these costs are like they're maybe related to like labor lapse where we had budgeted positions, but we didn't have them for a full year and things like that. That's labor lapse and things like that. Okay. All right. Just
I mean,
curious, just if,
a good question. I mean, that would be a natural question from a lot of people, like why is there surplus funds?
but the trend on that surplus is going down, so we certainly don't want to be.
Which
I
would say
hope
that-
so. We've been
that
watching
would
it for
be
2
very
years. So
Better managed.
we hope it's better managed. There's still 1 million, a little over 1 million that's in that fund. That's kind of just like a rainy day. It's equal to 1 month of expenses. At some point, I would like for us to put it in a separate bank account, and this is your reserve account, and people can't touch it. That's another discussion.
75 cents a week equals $6.96.
Okay.
I get that other $3 worked out easily. Probably something more like 80 cents, but.
So Robert, based on Danielle, you, Kate, so what would the assessment rate be for 2017?
Okay, so to summarize, the 580 would go to 573. The 18 would go to basically $9, or $10, as Danielle said, and then
9.
you had 9. Okay, so it's yep. Okay, so 18 goes to 9, 143 stays 143. And then over and above that, we would use half of the 1.1 million, which is minus 27. So you add up the three amounts, 573, 9, and 143. That gives you 725 minus 27, which is the half of the surplus, gives us 698.
Okay.
Danielle, you've got the same?
And that would leave us that our $1 million in kind of the rainy day fund,
Plus.
plus another
550,000.
550,000
Right.
to have an extra cushion to see where that fluctuation goes next year with the surplus
And
perhaps.
because next year what's going to happen is, we're at a spending level of 725.
Right.
Now, we're going to have normal increases, that's going to put us up.
Right.
It'll be, we're smoothing that jump.
Yep. It buys us some time to look at other issues as well.
Right, because I think what we all need to realize is that about $7 or $8 of this assessment increase is due to reduced revenue. So I think it's a more realistic look at the revenue, and I'm glad to see that it's.
Meaning we took out the investment earnings.
And I think it would
Right,
be
but
good to
that's
see
half.
that.
That's okay, that's fine.
But the
It's the
other
same.
half is we're reducing aquatics and tennis.
Right.
I don't think tennis. I'm
But
sorry.
with the
No,
just
pilot program that we're investing, the, whatever, the $5,000 or whatever it was, the member services pool pilot, which is $5,000, we don't show.
Part of that revenue drop was related to programming though, right?
Yeah, it's camp summaries 24, or let's say 25, aquatics was 50, and tennis is 24, 25.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, we need to do better there.
so 100,000 of that. And interest was 76.
Okay.
Anything else we need to do on this assessment?
So it's a 6% assessment increase. That's what it comes down to.
Right.
Are you, Ellen just said it, Tim?
Well, they can't, they have to hold a public hearing.
Right,
They have-
exactly.
So if this is it, if this is how you're setting it, this is what needs to go to public hearing
Correct.
before you finalize the assessment amounts. There are several rates that you have. This is the highest rate. There are lesser rates, which we'll go into after the public hearing, after you've set it, as to how they apply, depending on
Pursuant to the rest.
pursuant to the deed, right.
Thank you, Robert.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Is this is what we're going with, is
Yeah?
I would make a-
698?
I would make a
Right.
motion, a second, and take the vote.
Motion, for public
taking
hearing
this forward to
purposes.
public hearing.
Right.
Make a motion, please.
What am I making the motion, or what's the motion?
That you're going forward with the 698 for
Assessment rate.
purposes of holding the public hearing.
I'd like to make a motion that we move forward with the assessment level of 698 for the public hearings.
Second?
Do I have a second?
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor?
I have a question.
I need to make sure I get the appropriate
Okay.
count on the
All right,
vote.
all those in favor, let's,
Don't we have a
we have a
discussion first?
discussion.
discussion.
I have a question, and they shouldn't be frustrated that I'm going to ask a question. I would appreciate it. This 698 is computed 725 minus 27 from excess.
Surplus cash.
Surplus cash.
I just
Half
want to
of
make
the
sure they understand it.
1.1
So what
mil.
we're really voting for is 725,
True.
right?
There's two things. That's one of them,
Okay,
yes.
I just want to
Yep.
make sure that I have my numbers right. I
you're
don't want
right.
to be accused of anything.
Okay,
Okay. All right, I'm done.
good? Okay. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please indicate in the usual manner. I know we're tired. That's one, two.
We're taking it to public
We're going
hearing.
to public
Take
hearing.
a public hearing.
Going to public hearings. Okay. Jeff? Okay. And opposed?
Opposed.
Okay. Good, thank you so much. Okay, next, we need a date for the public hearing. Kate, what do you have?
I'm suggesting, I originally came to you with the 17th of November. I do not think that's fair. I think that you need to hear from the public before you actually set the assessment rates. So my recommendation is you hold it on Tuesday, November the 1st.
Yeah.
That's a board operating committee night, so you've already got a few of you who are here. But I say set aside about an hour just to take public comment, hear what they have to say, and if you want to make any adjustments based on any comments that you receive.
Okay.
That would be my recommendation.
Yes.
What about the October 24th? Is there not enough notice for that,
No,
the board meeting?
no, because that is, the next meeting is the 27th, which is next week.
Sorry, the 27th?
No, we have to have a 2-week
Got
hearing
it.
period, 2-week notice period. So
So
it
at
is
that
not.
public hearing, what does that look like?
That's just receiving comments from members on the proposed assessment rate for 2017.
Is that enough time?
Is that an opportunity to ask about the pool question to the public?
About subtracting about $140,000 out of $7 worth of whatever out of operating expenses for the pool? Or do you want to
No,
close
bigger,
the pools?
bigger than that.
I think, no, that's a
That's a
bigger issue. That's
That's a
a
huge
public
issue.
hearing, and that's lots of extra time. You don't have enough time for that. That is a good thing to do in 17, however. I do recommend it.
Right.
I think you work with your PRAC, the Parks and Rec Advisory Committee on that.
I want to suggest we need to give the public a little more time than that.
For the
Say it
public
again,
hearing?
Ray.
I think that the public needs a little bit more time to hear about this, understand it, formulate whatever questions they're going to have. I don't think November 1's enough time.
Sure, you could do hearing on the 1st and on the 17th. I just need to, I need a decision in enough time to produce the materials that go out to the membership.
Right.
And in order with our policies, I need to get that out by mid-December, meaning in the mail by mid-December.
Right.
So the public will have 2 bites at the apple, then November 1 and November 17 is
Sure.
what you say.
Sure, that'd be fine.
Yeah, as long as that's the case, the 17th is fine with me.
And just understand then you're making a decision on the assessment rates the same night. It's okay.
We've done that before.
Oh, Robert's got a big hand in the air. Yes, sir.
Oh, actually, Melissa.
Melissa has her hand in the air.
Is the TOC on first?
It is on the 1st. We're avoiding Halloween.
Well, that's not 2 weeks from tonight.
She gets technical on me. Thank you. So we'd have to pick a different night than the 1st. That's what we talked about at SLT. It's okay. Nobody had their calendars out. It's all right. All right. So
The 3rd,
you can do it on the 3rd?
you'd have to get notice that tomorrow.
Wait,
Right.
is that election day?
No,
No,
the election day is the 8th.
8th.
It's the 31st. I can remember.
Oh, wait, I have a question. We can't do the 27th and the 17th?
You have to have.
You have to have 2 weeks from the
notice.
first time?
Yes.
Notice.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you could just do it on the 17th and that's it. I was just trying to give you a couple of bites at the apple, as Ray indicated, but you can just do
let's-
it in one night.
I really think the public needs as much opportunity as possible.
17th is fine, we can stick with the board meeting on the 17th.
So there's a.
That gives you adequate time
I'm sorry,
to,
say that again?
You make adjustments to whatever comes out of that meeting, and if you have
Okay.
a groundswell of something, then,
Well,
yeah.
we should
make
know by
adjustments.
November 1 a lot, right? I mean, a lot of the people who are seriously following this, by November 1, they're going to have it. Let's hear what they have to say.
21,364
Emails are coming.
owners.
right?
Yes.
So, Council, do we need a motion on this or just on November the 17th?
Set the
Yeah,
hearing
set it.
date for November the 17th.
motion.
Yeah, I do need a
Yeah.
motion, yes.
Ray, you want to make a motion?
I make a motion to hold the public hearing on November 17th.
Do I have a second?
Public hearing on the 1st and the 17th.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I apologize. Who made the motion?
I did.
Sherry made
Thank you,
the motion.
Sherry, okay.
Just the first.
Danielle did the
I mean, just the
second.
17th.
Say it slowly, I'm getting old.
Yeah.
Just the 17th. First isn't, we don't have
any
enough time to get
No,
it.
we need,
Seconded the
no, if
motion,
you do it the
please.
night of the,
I second.
Danielle.
Thank you, I
Danielle.
appreciate that. There's a
No,
lot
but
of
there's not, we have to give
conversation.
2 weeks' notice, and the first is not 2 weeks from
well,
now.
then make it the 8th and the 17th.
So
Do
there's
something.
a
Give the
October
people
Well,
the
we have a
chance.
motion
That's
on the
election
floor.
day.
Please.
Change your motion.
BOC meeting is the 7th of October.
No, the BOC,
BOC interviews, remember our special second meeting?
right,
I don't know if you want to tag on to that.
is the,
Anything on the 15th?
hold on one second, because I've got a couple of things that I need to do in order to
So I do
check.
think
One,
we should
have to
maybe
have
give them 2
space.
dates.
Right.
One, we have to have space.
DRB has a full panel on the 15th, according to
course
my
they do.
calendar,
All right, bear
by the
bear
way,
with me.
which means it
How long are
gets
these
taped.
hearings?
Depending on how many
Depends
people
on how
sign
many
up.
people sign up
Showed
to
up,
speak.
yeah.
Jeff and Julie, on November 7th is the BOC interview. Would that be all right to turn that into a,
Thought that was
Yep.
a normal BOC. No?
that's
No,
the
that's
interview
just
one.
that's an extra date for overage.
That's an extra date for,
Fine.
Yeah.
7th is
We
fine.
could do it on the 7th? And the
Fine.
17th?
We already have room space on the 7th.
17th is good.
So I amend my
7th.
motion.
7 and 17. Something about those numbers. Should I play them tomorrow night or what? 7 and 17.
They do kind of ring.
Yeah.
7, 7.
Is there any
Bring it to
further
that.
discussion?
So can I amend my motion?
Please, friendly amendment.
Friendly amendment means
myself?
yes.
Yes.
Yes. So 7 and 17, right?
All in favor?
Okay. Any further discussion? All those in favor? 7th and the 17th. Public hearing. That's, Jeff, you with us?
Ray, you with
Ray?
us?
I'm with you, all the
All
way.
right, that's unanimous.
6:30?
6:30, right?
To adjourn.
Great public hearing and then never remember what that is.
Well, I'd like
I'll
to thank.
send out a Outlook invite.
Of course you will.
I'd
You're
like
good
to
at that.
thank directors for all of your information, your attention. It's been a long evening, and it's been a very, very intentional evening. And I'd like to thank you so much for your time. And based on that, do I have a motion?
Motion to adjourn. Oh, sorry.
All right.
Let Eve make the motion. You
That's
want a
okay.
second?
That's fine.
Okay, discussion, all those in favor? Aye.
Aye. Say aye.